Okay, Ed.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Manlius board meeting this evening. One more Zoom. John, let's get live here pretty soon, huh? So before we begin, everyone, let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Again, before we get started, I would like to start out with introductions, and I'll begin with myself as Ed Theobald, Town of Manlius Supervisor.
Sarah Bollinger, Town Councilor.
John Deere, Town Councilor.
Elaine Denton, Town Councilor.
Karen, you were muted.
Oh, Karen. Karen, you're muted. There. Okay. Oh,
Oh,
There you-
almost.
Karen Green, Deputy Supervisor.
Caitlin Creasel, Town Councilor.
Heather Waters, Town Councilor.
very good. And also with us tonight are other town officials. We have Randy Capriati, Director of Code Enforcement. With Chief Mike Crowell. Let's see, Highway Superintendent Rob Cushing. Town Attorney Tim Ferteski. Town Engineer Doug Miller. Town Manager Anut. Town Clerk Allison Weber. And I'd like to introduce MJ Engineering, Joel Bianchi. And Tracy Sousa. Did I get that right, Tracy? Sousa?
You did.
Like the band leader or the songwriter, I believe.
Exactly.
So very good, everyone. Let's see. Oh, yes, we do have open podium this evening. I believe Allison, I know we have Jillian McGuire. And did you say Carrie is going to be here or not?
She is not. She has postponed to another day. And I don't see Jillian in the meeting.
Oh.
But if you are here under a different name, Jillian, and you want to raise your hand. I do see Ben Volmer has his hand up, so I am going to, I'm not sure if that's Jillian or not, but it is open podium, so I will allow to talk.
Not sure who.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, not Jillian. This is Ben Vollmer from Renewable Properties. We had a solar project receive a land use approval in early March, and I was hoping to speak with the board about a potential pilot with the IDA. I'm not sure if this is the right time to do it, but just wanted to speak up.
Actually, that Tim, you can address that as far as that portion goes.
Are you referring to the letter from Stephanie Lucas sent to me by Mr. Panache?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to discuss that under the attorney tonight, under my items.
Okay.
All right,
I will
great.
send back then.
Yeah, so that'll be later in the meeting, Ben.
Okay, thank you.
Unless the board wants to discuss it now.
Oh,
But I think we should allow the public to comment if there's public comment. And then we
yes,
can-
right. I'd like to start with that. So, and I know that I spoke with Jillian. I had a nice conversation with her, and we had a good discussion. Along as well with my daughter, who is up in the same neighborhood, requesting some of the things that she's interested in. But you don't see her yet, Allison? Okay, we did.
I do not.
Okay. Well, we may have to come back. Did we have I did get that email from you, from Kieran May, that he wanted to do a public comment?
He was asking some questions, but I don't see him on here either. That was not necessarily an open podium request, but it was used, what was used was our comment form.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. I was thinking that's what it was. And okay, we can certainly get back to him on that question, you know. So it was from when we approved the solar on the landfill. We can give him all that information. So
I do not see any other hands up. Oh, there is something in the Q&A.
yeah, just looking at that from Leslie Pease.
They're asking how many people here are attending from outside the board. It does appear that there are 53 attendees in the room. Some of those are presenters. We have switched to a different format for the ease of people who are viewing from home, so that all of the screen is not filled up with people who are not necessarily speaking. So I will be promoting panelists when it is time for them to come in. And we do have quite a few tonight.
And I think that and I think that probably the questions are probably referencing the water district public hearing, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe not. Could have been something else. Why don't we do this? Why don't we move along, and if Jillian does jump in, we can always take a step back and have her give us her concerns that she wanted to talk about. How does that sound, everyone? You good with that? Okay. And so at 6:38, we have a couple of minutes actually before we continue. Oh, we're behind on that. So let's start with the approval of abstract number 9. Item 4.
You want to do the minutes?
You know, I don't have that on my list here.
We don't have the minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, Sarah, but
The minutes were added, and so they are on there, but they have been made available to the public. So as long as they are available within 2 weeks, we have met our requirement, and they could certainly be tabled until the next meeting if you'd like.
oh, okay, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to table them, Allison, until the next meeting.
Sure. I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Carried. Very good. Now we can move on to item 4, which is the approval of abstract number 8.
There's
So-
actually something we have to do before that too.
Yeah, so we did have several agenda items coming in at the last minute. So the agenda that is released on Friday, there are sometimes late additions that are sent out.
The one on the website is not up to date.
I printed it from the website just now, and I have them all right here. So
I'm working from the one on the website, and it's in the order as you're saying, Allison. It includes the minutes and these other items. So we could link people if they want to be able to look at it on their screens.
And did you print out yours earlier? Like, cause mine, the website's correct.
I think I printed it yesterday.
So I'll try.
Yeah, the one I'm printing was from yesterday.
So I can tell you the next item that we have on there is the return of remaining securities for Brennan Fields Run. And we were just waiting for some additional approvals just to make sure that everything was all set. This is ahead of the abstract because you do need to vote to return this before we would pay it on the abstract. You had already released the securities and dedicated the road on January 13th of this year, and Rob can talk a little bit about the technical part of it.
Yeah, Ed, and the rest of the board, we had a situation with a drainage situation up on Brennan Fields in that section. As since then, Doug and myself have both been out there, and I believe that the drainage situation has been rectified. We've gone out and kind of looked at it, and I think I have no issues, Doug, as long as you don't, as far as releasing the rest of the $3,000 in security.
Yeah, it looks like the paving was completed, and we have a letter of release from Matt Naparella's office that the drainage is intact and operating the way it should be. So we should be all set to release Sharon and Bob's money. So we're just looking for a motion to
All right,
make it happen.
so we'll need a motion to release the money on the Brennan Fields.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to release the remaining $3,000 in securities for Brennan Field Run.
Now second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? Okay, now do we move on to the?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Yeah, we have the abstract and Karen, Supervisor Theobald and Counselor Green, Debbie's going to bring down 2 new agendas to you. Since we all happen to be in the same building, she's printing them off and she'll bring them right down.
Oh, I've got it. Alice said on my phone, so we're good.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
I don't, so I'm waiting for it, but that's good. All right, well, we can still move on to you made a motion, John, and did we approve it yet? The abstract?
No, I'm going to do the abstract now, if that's okay.
Yep, please do.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to move to approve the abstract number 8 in the amount of $419,347.41.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, can we move on to the continuation of the public hearing? Is that number 5 on everyone, or number, who knows what number now?
Number
7?
7. Number 7.
That makes sense. Okay, and then probably the rest is pretty clear. So what we're doing here, this is a continuation of the public hearing on the Sky Ridge Water District, Salt Springs Water District, in parentheses. We have had numerous emails, phone calls, a lot of messages, and I know, Allison, I know you've received a lot of those. Do you want to just do a summary on those, and then before we before we ask, thank you, Deb, before we ask for the participants to, step to speak, not participate.
Sure. It's been interesting times here at Town Hall because we've had 2 projects going on that overlap. So we have some residents who are affected by 2 major projects. So Deb and I have sort of sifted through everything, and we hopefully we have them all, because some people submitted letters about both items at the same time. So I'm going to read them, and we were getting items right up until right before the meeting. So I do have a form here from Barton and LaJudas, and I've been asked to just read the name and the sentiment of the comment as we've been doing in past meetings. So Barry Smith submitted a comment on the Salt Springs website and said that he was not in favor of the project. Joseph Massinio submitted several questions several very specific questions to the website. And it looks like on a couple of different dates. Scott Thompson, he said that he was in favor of the project. John Belton, he said that he is also in favor of the project. Barb Wilson submitted a letter and she said, I believe she's in favor of the project because it says no stopping Salt Springs Water District. Deborah Tooker submitted a question about the Salt Springs Water District, and I believe she did also ask that in the last meeting. And James and Rosemary Gerace, they said they were opposed to the project. They're deadly against the project. And we just received one last comment. So give me 1 second and I'll pull this up.
Yep.
Frank Cruz, and he said he is concerned about the cost of the project. He did not say that it was opposed. He asked some questions and said that he was concerned about the cost of the project. All of your comments and questions have been forwarded, if they were received by myself or through the website, have been forwarded to the town board. And I know, Sarah, you probably can speak to the comments submitted through the Barton and LaJudas website. Those comments have also been submitted to the town offices and are now on record here.
Thank you, Allison. Is Taylor, is he here yet? I know that he was.
Yeah, he's here and
Yep. I can promote them now. If you give me just one moment, I will work on that.
Yeah, because I thought there were a couple of questions that I thought maybe he could answer that was brought up to help move us along here that we received later on, such as hookup costs and that type of thing. I believe Taylor might have a PowerPoint screen to share that with everyone, because that was an important question. Hey, Taylor, there you are.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was going to share my screen again, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
One second.
And then once we go through this explanation, while Taylor's getting that set up, what I'd like to do is, if there's anyone that would like to speak that hasn't yet, I would like to ask them to you to let them in, Allison. And then once we go through those, if some other individuals who have already spoken need to ask any more questions, we can open it up to those that talked at the last meeting.
Okay, can you guys see my screen of the Manlius website?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I'm just going to show quickly everybody the link that is on the town's website, which then brings us to the Salt Springs Water Project website. And as Ed mentioned, I think a couple things we just want to reiterate. The first one being under drawings here, I'll pull the project map back up. So again, today, the focus is about Sky Ridge Water District. That's the existing district by Horseshoe Lane and Gulf Road. This map is all of the proposed infrastructure improvements that would include a new pump station, a new tank, water main along Salt Springs Road, as well as Horseshoe Lane and Gulf Road, and then connecting back into Aqua's existing system in the town of Sullivan. Again, we are focused right now on Sky Ridge Water District. So just backing up a step, Ed, you had mentioned project costs, and connection costs was one of the comments that we're seeing pretty frequently here. So under the project cost tab, we have a few different estimates. Just to start off, this is the total project cost. Then this set of numbers is to break it down into, the two different towns, as it's planned to be a joint project. A total annual user cost, including estimated Aqua water usage. And then finally, we have these user connection costs. So for Sky Ridge Water District, they already have water services from the water main going to their house. So they would not be responsible for connecting, because they already have a water service there. As we put in new water main and a new service to the property line, we can make those reconnections. But for folks along Salt Springs Road who are on private wells right now and do not have water services, we have a series of estimates. We're trying to give people a good understanding of what costs they may see for their property. Of course, every property is going to be different, so just keep that in mind. But starting on the left side here, if your house is fairly close to the road, let's say 60 feet off of the right of way, and it's in a mostly soil condition subsurface, we would estimate that cost to be about $2,700 to make that connection. Keep in mind that's through a private contractor, so these are just our estimates. And I'm sure all private contractors' estimates would vary. However, if you had that same, 60 feet from the road, but you're in an area where there's a lot of rock and the rock is fairly shallow, we've estimated that you would have an additional about $2,800 in rock excavation costs, which would bring your connection costs up to about $5,500. Of course, as you move further away from the road, you have a further distance to install the water service, and the cost will go up. So kind of on the more extreme end, if you're 250 feet from the road and you're in an area that there is not shallow rock, your connection cost would be in the ballpark of $8,700. Then if you're in that same 250 feet from the road, but the bedrock is very shallow, we've just assumed like at grade for this estimate, you're going to see a pretty significant rock excavation cost, which would jump your connection cost to about $22,000. So certainly that's a scary number. Every property owner is going to be different. I can only imagine that, if you're that far off the road, your well is okay. You may not be looking to connect to the water system in the near future, but if there was an issue with your well, certainly that water main would be available to you. That $22,000, of course, this is all variable depending on the property, but you're in the ballpark of what it might cost to drill a new well. So I wanted to be clear on that.
Taylor, quick question on the well you mentioned.
Yes.
So the hookup, would it be hook up to the well? And would that depend on the location of the well then?
Correct. So we do have on the website, if I go back to drawings, and then this map here, which I already have pulled up. Can you guys see that? So this is a simple diagram that we tried to show what the property owner would be required to do. So I'm going to focus on the right-hand side. This is where you're further from the road. What we're showing here is the water main within the right-of-way. The project would install a water service and a shutoff to your property line. And then you would probably have to install a meter pit, given the distance you are from the road, to be in compliance with Aqua requirements. But after that meter pit, per Aqua's requirements, you don't have to install type K copper service. You can kind of do whatever you want. And if your water meter, if your well is right in this area in your front yard, you could simply reconnect your piping, that's going to the well from your house to this water service, and it would significantly cut down on your cost. So that's an option as well. But again, every property is different.
Thank you.
One other thing I just wanted to mention, because we did have a few questions from some residents, was on the well levels, the existing wells in the Sky Ridge Water District last summer. So I just wanted to clarify some of my previous comments. They're a little subjective. We did get some information from Aqua, and I'm just going to stop my share. But I just wanted to clarify that. So Aqua, I believe, had sent an email to Ed and Sarah and some others on the town board, just noting that as of right now, the water level above the well pump is about 26 feet. Typically, this time of year, we'd expect it to be, at its highest level. To compare that to last year at the same time, the well level was 33 feet. To compare that to 2017 to 2019, it was at 50 feet. So right now, it's been a very dry spring. That well level is about half of what it's been in past years.
Taylor, pardon me, could you repeat those figures? You said it's what this year, and it would have been, and it was what last year?
Yep. So this year, right now, it's at about 26 feet. Last year at the same time, it was 33. And then 2017 to 2019, it was in the ballpark of about 50 feet. So it's certainly lower than we've seen recently. Last year, I believe the well level dropped down into the teens. There was a failed sensor. That was what I had seen, that had shown the well level at about a foot, but that was not correct. that was due to the failed sensor. So the lowest it got last year in that August timeframe when we had some drought conditions, we were in the teens, anywhere between, I think, like 11 to 16 feet or so of water above the pumps.
And what are the implications of that with the reduced numbers currently?
It's not a significant concern right now. It's something that Aqua is monitoring. The extreme scenario is that water level drops below where the well pumps are. And Aqua had mentioned that this did happen back in the 90s. They weren't sure the exact date, but because of that, they actually had to truck water into the district. That's your extreme scenario.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. All right, Ellison, I know we have some people in the Q&A, but I'd like to bring in, I see there's a couple of new speakers here that would like to talk. I believe that's Aaron Trojan, I think. Is that right?
Yes, I can allow to speak right now.
And then we can address the other ones that are asked on the Q&A. Aaron, or you're bringing her in? Oh,
I am here.
on your way. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. My name is Erin Trojan. I live at 8789 Horseshoe Lane, and I would like to speak in favor of the project. I do feel that this is the best long-term decision for not only our community, but for those in the project area. Bringing public water to our area greatly improves property values. And even if a private well, whether it's our community wells or someone along the project corridor isn't having problems now, I think that the numbers that Taylor just explained can demonstrate that that can happen to anybody at any time very quickly. And while we have the benefit of Aqua supporting us by bringing in a tank, other people, or tanking in water other people don't. And that's something that we would like to see improved and see progress on. And so that's why we're in the position that we are. Fire protection is also something that is very important to us and our neighbors. And I believe, and I didn't double check myself before I got on here, but I believe that our fire district is Kirkville. And that's a very circuitous route to get up here. So that is something that is important to us. And we have seen some fires, in our area that we would like to see those other people also have the opportunity to have fire protection. And we feel that being part of the Aqua system is more cost efficient in terms of operation and maintenance in the long term. And so that's another reason why we're supporting this project up here. Not just myself, but a lot of people that I know. So thank you to the board for your time tonight.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Good to hear from you. So Allison, maybe you can go through some of the.
I do have one more hand raised to talk under the name Benson.
Well, I think, did he speak at the last one, or is
I
that?
think so, yeah.
And I also have a Donna Edgar with her hand up. But if you'd like, I can read the comments. Deborah Tooker clarified that she is in favor of the water project.
Yep.
Beth Scott and Mark Stanbro said they are in favor of the project. John Belton asked if the new proposed water district would require any zoning changes.
I don't believe so. Tim, I don't think there'd be any change in that, right? No.
Tim's shaking his head no.
No, the answer is no.
We have a resident who is just registered under the word international. Says the residents in the town of Sullivan and Skyridge will benefit from the proposed Salt Springs Water District. Why are they not included in the proposed district?
We need, under the public hearing rules of the open meeting, we do need anyone who needs to speak, their name for the record.
Okay. Barb Wilson said, is there a chance that the remaining funds Horseshoe Lane has paid annually could be given to others in the new district who are unable to foot their bill for connecting? People could apply for help from this fund in order to defray the cost. Just an idea might make some people more inclined to get their money's worth for the debt service. And it says, will it cost HL, I believe to be Horseshoe Lane residents, money when Aqua has to bring in the water if our wells fail? No need to answer this now. And she provided contact information. Faith Binder says, Horseshoe Lane residents were told by the town in 2011 that our water tank needed either painting or replacing. It is 2021. We were told the pipes from the tanks to the houses were not necessarily sound or usable over more time. In fact, there was no information known about the material or fitness of those connections. Has any of this been updated? And I am in favor of the project.
Yeah, that real quick, let me address that quickly. I know, Ann, you can help, and Doug, you were in on that one. Yeah, that was the Aqua had sent a letter explaining the upkeep repair work, I guess. Is that right, Doug? Maybe you can give us an overview. I know it was 7 or 8 years ago, and we did meet with residents in the area to talk about what it would take to fix those problems. There was not a concern with pipes, I don't believe. Doug, do you remember the conversation there, Nan?
We've had several meetings over the years with the group. We've had several proposals on the table. I think they mirror the same, pretty close to what Barton LaJudas has said. As we met with the homeowners, there just appeared not to be an interest to move forward with painting the tank a couple of times that we met with them.
Right. Yeah, okay. Go ahead,
All right. Ronnie M says that they're in favor of the project. Michelle Romano and Jim Romano are in favor of the project. David Lockrow is in favor. Susan Button is in favor of the project. Eric and Donna Weihenstrower, I didn't butcher that, they are in favor of the project. Benson has his hand up to speak, so I am going to let his comment be reflected there. Alex and Sherry Dunkel, they are in favor of the project. Leslie Pease is in favor of the project for the same reasons that Aaron provided. Says it's an excellent plan for the future and solves many problems. Barb Wilson asks if more aggressive efforts will be made part of the board to seek funds from Onondaga County and or the state federal level to bring costs down between now and the final vote. Faith Binder wrote 10 years. I think that was referenced into a previous comment. International clarified that it was Joe Dodd from Salt Springs. He is opposed to the project. The residents in Skyridge in the town of Sullivan will benefit from the Salt Springs Water District. Why are they not included? So he clarified. Ron and Judy.
Can I ask a question quickly? Are we going to address the questions that people are asking, or are we just reading through them? What is the plan for actually addressing?
I'm sorry. I've been trying to pause every time. So I've been paused. I did not pause at the Barb Wilson question. So that was the last question.
On the
and then the proposed water district. So I got very mission focused. So Barb Wilson asked if you are going to seek additional funds before the final vote.
So yes.
Okay. And then Joe Dodd asked why residents from Sky Ridge in the town of Sullivan will benefit but are not included.
Oh, the Sky Ridge Road in the town of Sullivan?
The residents on Sky Ridge Road in the town of Sullivan will benefit from this proposed Salt Springs Water District. Why are they not included?
I believe it's because they voted against it when it was on the ballot last time.
Sky Ridge Road, I think you're right on that.
Yeah.
Taylor, you probably have a handle on
In
that.
our last meeting, that was discussed, I remember.
Right.
Mike and Vanja Goodman are in favor of the project. Deborah Tooker says the water system is a great town improvement and we should take advantage of infrastructure funding. J.R. Messinio, I believe you should tell us the address of those making the comments. It is likely that Horseshoe Lane folks are those that are commenting positively. I have some addresses and I don't have all addresses.
Yeah, so most of them are Horseshoe Lane, it looks like a lot of them.
Yes.
In the letters we received too, I know we had both Horseshoe Lane and other addresses.
Right.
Andrea Belton says she is in favor of the project. Nancy and Matt Zlomak are in favor of the project. This is the best long-term solution. Zlomaks are on Horseshoe Lane. Marlene says she's in favor of the project. Even if a resident does not choose to tie in, having water at the street is cheap insurance to guarantee its availability in the event of future need. Ronnie clarified that their positive comments were from Gulf Road. And Mr. Messinio said, so Sky Ridge Road was eliminated because they opposed the water district. Interesting.
Right.
So that currently clears the comments. I am going to promote, I have them in order: Benson, Donna, Edgar, and David Sheraton. I'm going to promote Benson, and then and Ronnie and Judy Daly at Salt Springs are in favor of the project. So then I can clear those comments, we can focus on this, and then we can go back.
And just a reminder to the three that are going to be speaking under the public hearing, we try to keep it, 3 to 5 minutes. We've been pretty good at most everyone's been under that number. So, but just as a reminder, and we have your name, so that's important.
Hello, Steve Benson here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great. I'm getting to know y'all from a distance here. So I just want to say a couple things. Back when I started getting interested in this, right after the first study was done, the town engineer told me that the yearly cost that they calculated would be no less than $2,500 to $3,000 a year. The quote was, "This dog won't hunt." At that time, the comptroller's threshold was 900. Somehow it went up. It's now around 1,100, but that's okay. My problem is that back then, this was predicated on some kind of sketchy desires, where Sky Ridge, that used to have a huge pool, competitive swimming pool out there, couldn't get enough water for a number of veterans that needed assistance. And I'm a veteran, but frankly, that's all kind of gone away.
You mean Clear Path? That's
Clear Path. And then the other one was the Horseshoe Path, which that Horseshoe Lane, which has been made clear as to what we think may be something that they have on their plate to fix. So some inappropriate funding burden is being placed on a number of other folks. It seems somewhat kind of collective goods Soviet-esque. When actually what I believe is there is a commercial interest here, and I'm not in disfavor of development, but let's figure out what's actually being done here, and maybe the commercial interests should kick in a little more. And this last question I have is, you said you're going to pay for the hookup from the line to the property. Does that mean you're going to come across the road? Pay for that?
Taylor?
Yes, services would be brought across the road.
So all those things are interesting to me. Like I said, I'm not entirely disfavor of development, but I'm not sure we're, being upfront. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I have Donna Edgar. And then we do have two other comments. I'm going to clear the hands up and then we'll go back to the comments.
Sounds good.
All right.
Oh,
Donna,
Allison, it's like you've been doing this for a year. Sorry.
Donna, you are able to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Donna Edgar. I live at 1233 Salt Springs Road. I have been in this house and on my well for 60 years without a single problem, no matter how dry the water tables got up here. So I'm definitely against the water system. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay. And next we have David Sheridan. All right, David, you are
available at retailers near you. If you drive a car, truck, SUV, or vehicle of any kind, you need Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. That's right. With the free Get Upside gas app, you can get up to
Hat check violation. Just kidding.
Is that a commercial, David? Before
I muted him.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So shall I unmute or?
Catch. It's simple.
Probably not.
Okay.
Go to the Q&A.
I have disabled. All right, so we can check that off our bucket list.
First.
All right. Now I have lost my train of thought.
Q&A.
David
Yeah.
Sheridan does exist and does live there, by the way. I don't know what happened to his system there.
You might have just had
That's
a
kind
video
of what I
on
was struggling with internally. I felt bad about that. Okay. International, and I know at some point this person had told us their name, so I'm going to allow them to talk their real person.
It's Joe Dodd.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second to recover.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hey, Joe, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, I live at 1365 Salt Springs Road, just down the road in the town of Sullivan. I just want to follow up on my question. My understanding of New York State Town Law, Section 12, is that any property that would benefit from the proposed district has to be included within the district, whether they're opposed to it or not. So I'd just like further explanation as to how and why the residents on Sky Ridge Road are being excluded. I understand that they're opposed to it, but again, they will benefit from this project if it moves forward by fire flow and increased property value. So again, I'd like further explanation as to how and why they're being excluded from the district boundaries. Thank you.
I can speak to that, Ed.
Yeah, please do. Thank you. Joe.
So Sky Ridge Road in the town of Sullivan, that's a spur off of Salt Springs Road. A previous iteration of this project, we had proposed installing water main down Sky Ridge Road to serve those properties. As was mentioned before, there was resistance to that. So the current iteration, we just continue the water main along Salt Springs Road. We do not add a spur on Sky Ridge Road. So there's no water main on Sky Ridge Road. Anybody fronting Salt Springs Road would be part of the Sullivan proposed district. So you might be on the corner of Sky Ridge and Salt Springs because your property fronts Salt Springs. And as the caller mentioned, they would have a benefit and access to that water main. They are included in the district.
They would be.
Correct, because they front Salt Springs Road. Yes.
That's part of the EDUs that we had added into the project.
Yep, and that's all understood. I think the question you have to consider is that house just one down from the corner. God forbid there's a fire there. They will benefit from this project by having fire flow provided to their house. And that's indisputable. But yet they're being excluded from the district because they're opposed.
That's correct. I mean, there'll be a hydrant on Salt Springs Road closer to their road. that same scenario plays out, you know, over by the corner of North Eagle Village Road, where there is water main and it stops, you know, before we get to Salt Springs. I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you. I'm glad that point was made.
I have a question to kind of follow up on that. With the neighborhoods, like it certainly appears that there are some areas, some neighborhoods where there are more people who are in favor of it, and then fewer people in other areas. Like there seems to be kind of a clear division between the Horseshoe Lane neighborhood and Salt Springs. And I'm curious as to why there is that much of a discrepancy. Why are all the folks in Horseshoe Lane so much more in favor of this than the people on Salt Springs Road? I'm not completely understanding the distinction between the, I mean, they're right next to each other. Like, how is that happening?
I think it's personal preference. There's people who live right next to each other that are either a favor or opposed. I mean, I think the people in the Sky Ridge district, which is what today's hearing is about, are in favor because they have an issue with their current system. But when you get out onto Salt Springs, it's just who the people are and how they feel about it.
Yeah, and really, I mean, Taylor, you could probably show those numbers again. We're looking at the cost for just the Sky Ridge district in this public hearing right now. But in your presentation at the last meeting, you showed that, you know, once we, if we agree to have them in this district to start the 212B, whatever it is, I forget it, then we can go to the Salt Springs Road and Town of Sullivan, and then we would be able to do a joint project where we would get more funding to reduce the cost for everybody. Is that, I mean, I'm summarizing, but is that, it'll bring the cost down for Sky Ridge because everyone in the on Salt Springs would be included now. So that would bring Sky Ridge's costs down, their annual costs for it'd be more than what they're paying now.
Yeah, so Ed, the costs that we've presented are the joint project costs. So that would include, you know, units, people with houses that would participate in the joint project in both Sullivan and Manlius on Salt Springs Road. But where we're at right now, this is kind of step one of that entire process, which is to move forward, you know, with the Sky Ridge, their quote 202B improvements to existing district.
So this is the very first step to get to the end result, which is to include everyone to meet those costs that you had presented, the annual cost, which I know they range, but maybe you can just show that again, that number.
Sure. So one thing I just want to reiterate again, this being step one, there are numerous other roadblocks and you know, stopping points in this you know, this project. So after if the board chooses to move forward with the 202B resolution, as you're saying, Ed, we would have to still form the Salt Springs districts, which would be, you know, an Article 12 petition process. The board would have to accept those petitions. So, you know, as we get further into the agenda, we'll talk about later, but you know, if we move forward with the resolution in front of the board today, it's not, you know, full steam ahead for the entire project. This is just step one.
Right. Okay. I just wanted you to clarify that a little bit for everyone again. It's been 2 weeks.
This is Rich Andino. I just want to dovetail off what Taylor said. Once if petitions are submitted for the other two districts, both the town board in Sullivan and the Manlius town board will be required to have additional public hearings for those Article 12 districts. So again, the public hearing last time and tonight is for the 202B portion, which is you know, the existing Sky Ridge Water District, and it is a large component of the joint project. But there will be additional public hearings in the event that those petitions are submitted.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. Allison,
Okay.
a couple of people want to make a comment, I think.
So we have 18 comments. I'm gonna go through them. J.R. Messinio asks, do you plan to answer the questions that were submitted on the website?
So I think some of them we are trying to answer now. Some of them that are more complicated would be answered on the site website, where there could be more engineering explanation.
Okay. Deborah Tooker asks, what are the commercial interests? I think that was in reference to a previous speaker.
Was he referencing ClearPath, do you think?
I think that was the idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this person did not register their name. It just says MS. They do say that they are in favor of the project, having been personally affected by a fire, a total loss suburban park apartments in 2015. I know how much important fire protection can be. In addition, private and community wells can go dry at any time, regardless of location or current water flow. All residents in the area should consider this a rare opportunity to improve quality of life and utilities. So we have a request to make comments. Let me just.
Like Matt?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't see a Matt. I have just a Matt. So if you are the Matt Zlomek and you would like to speak, just go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to keep going unless that happened. Okay. Oh, and J.R. Marcinio would like to speak. So I'm going to promote him to be able to speak right now. And then right after that, I think I see Matt Zlomek. So Mr. Marcinio, you can go ahead and speak.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Sarah's response to my question, I prepared 10 or 11 extremely detailed, well-researched questions. And for you guys to tell me that you're not going to answer these questions in an open forum, I find to be extraordinarily opaque. These questions were well thought out, they were researched, and you're telling me you simply don't want to answer it. These are things that our fellow citizens should be well aware of. I don't disagree that Horseshoe Lane needs water. What I don't agree with is that all the rest of us on Salt Springs Road should have to pay for it. But I insist that those 10 questions be answered. They were submitted well in advance of this meeting. And please don't assume, as Taylor had told me before, that we're not able to understand the technical nature of it, because there's many people on this phone who are engineers and have advanced degrees. So please do not ignore the questions. If we were in a live meeting, I would have asked these live. And now you're basically putting them under the table and throwing them in the trash.
I'm sorry that you have that impression. That was certainly not my intent.
Well, it's my impression. You told me that you're not going to answer my questions. These questions need to be answered in an open forum. These are things that are being ignored and sometimes whitewashed by some of the so-called experts that I think need further explanation. So can we get answers to those questions that were submitted on the website? Or has this forum now become a way to basically shutter people?
The answers will be publicly available.
No, I was specifically told by Olivia of Barton LaJudas that these would be answered during the meeting. She told me this, and we had an exchange, and it was copied. I believe Ed was copied. It was said that they would be answered during the meeting. And now you're telling me you're not going to answer the questions. So how is that suit with an open meeting, open forum meeting?
Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have to understand the purpose of public hearings. Public hearings are an opportunity for the public to ask questions to the board or provide comments to the board. Frankly, there's no statutory requirement to answer those questions in any public forum because of the very nature of a public hearing. It's a difficult thing to do, especially if it's as technical as the kinds of questions you may have on this. I think it's certainly appropriate for the town board to review those questions provided to their professionals and have written responses available once once this public hearing gets closed, and provide those answers to you if you have specific questions. But there is no requirement that the town board even respond to questions that are raised in a public hearing or comments raised in a public hearing. So that's why we limit the amount of time for individuals to 3 minutes to 5 minutes to even speak in a public hearing. So
you're picking and choosing the questions that you want to answer. My questions were a combination of questions and comments. Not all of them were very terribly technical. They had to do with some of the assumptions made by the engineers that are very, very salient. For example, I believe, based on my research, that the connection costs are grossly misstated. But you're picking and choosing. Once you decide to answer one question, then I believe you're obligated to answer all of them, because you can't, this isn't a cafeteria, and despite this legal jargon that you're spewing, you should answer every question asked. If we're here until midnight, we're here until midnight.
Joe, excuse me. This is not a place for a debate. It's clearly stated in the rules in the open meetings law. So we are not here to debate tonight. We are here to listen to what our legal counsel says, and that's what we're going to follow. So we are not debating everything that you're saying tonight, just so you'll know that.
I'm not asking for a debate, Ed. I'm simply asking for you to answer questions. I'm not so sure why Sarah thinks it's so funny, but she seems to be laughing as you shut me down.
Well,
I want the questions that I submitted answered. I don't understand why that's so hard, or pick and choose half of them.
Well,
I have 2 weeks to answer them.
And we did address the hookups. We did have that information to that. I wanted to make sure we addressed that. I'm not sure of the other ones. I have to go back and look. But I agree with what Tim says. I think we've answered the majority of your questions that have been asked.
Ed, have you read my questions? They go on for 3 or 4 pages. I don't see where I've heard answers.
Let me explain, Joe. Let me explain right now. We are not really discussing the Salt Springs Water District. This is really to address the Sky Ridge Water District. When we get to the further on with this program, then we would have more discussion on the Salt Springs and more discussion with the town of Sullivan as well. They haven't even begun. I don't even think they've set a public hearing yet, if I'm not mistaken, Taylor. So, you know, there's so many steps that we need to get to that we do have time to answer a lot of these questions in the meantime.
All right, well, can I have a commitment that somebody will answer those questions, at least by way of email or in the public forum where they should be placed? Because Olivia refused to post my questions when I asked to have them posted. They're not posted. That's not transparency.
Yeah, we will definitely answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have 2 more requests to speak. I just wanted to make sure. Yes.
I just have a quick question. I wanted to clarify something. So Sarah, and Taylor and Ed, anyone who knows the process with BNL, sort of for it was Mr. Messineo speaking about an FAQ page. And so the questions he was asking, maybe Mr. Messineo, you can clarify. Are you saying that the questions were not placed on the FAQ page, or could we look at the site to navigate what I need to understand better what he's saying? Because I want to understand if we're talking about picking and choosing, or if we're talking about relevance.
All right,
to a greater group of people.
Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yeah.
All right, I submitted, I believe, 10 or 11 questions. I asked that in advance of the meeting, the questions be posted. Olivia communicated with me that they would not be posted, but they would be answered during the public forum. They obviously are not going to be answered in the public forum, but these were submitted through the portal as was requested. And I was assured that my questions would be answered during the meeting, and now I guess there's a change of heart, but they should at least be posted to get other people thinking about some of the things that I think are of concern. I don't know why you wouldn't post them. Maybe you don't answer them, but at least post them. I think that they should be in the light of day.
Taylor, I thought we did post them.
So can I clarify?
Please do.
So this past fall, we did intentionally like a Q&A, forum, if you will, on the website. And all the questions were gathered. We answered them, posted those on the website. The comment period was closed. Then 2 weeks ago, when the public hearing for Sky Ridge was opened, we opened up a second comment period on the website as an avenue for folks to insert their comments, more or less as part of the public hearing. Just another way for them to get comments to the board in case they couldn't make these meetings or send a letter. So the intent was they were, comments as part of a public hearing. And those were, I believe, what we had delivered to Allison and then to you folks as the board.
So I think when this public hearing is closed, we will do a similar Q&A summary of all the questions that we've collected. And then the website will stay up. And when there's a future public hearing about a future Article 12 action, there'll be another comment period with another Q&A. So I do believe, this was the system that we thought was a manageable system. It's not perfect, but I do believe that all of the answers are available to the public.
The questions are really germane to the entire 3 districts. They have to do with engineering questions. They have to do with financing questions, all pertain to all 3 entities. For example, my questions about the commentary about the expected financing, very, very vague. It applies to all 3. It's not just to Salt Springs Road.
But we're answering it now in the context of the first part. So we are addressing it with all 3.
Well, you're not answering the questions. You just told me you're not going to answer the questions.
I'm not answering them today, no. And our engineer will compose an answer and put them in the response.
Okay, so then the communication from Olivia of Barton and LaJudas, she should be corrected because she specifically told me they would be addressed.
All right, I'm sorry that happened. That was a misunderstanding.
Well, it went back and forth between me and Olivia and Ann, and I believe Ed might have been copied. I don't know who all saw it, but it wasn't just Olivia. There were other people that were involved here.
You know what I'd like to do, everyone? I think we should keep this open one more meeting. I know that really delays a lot of things, Sarah, but I believe, Joe has a valid point, I think, because we need to answer these questions. We talk transparency all the time, and we got to keep it out there, And I really believe that we should extend this to our next meeting. And at the same time, and in the meantime, we should publicly answer these questions that Joe has put forth and any other questions that are on there that we haven't responded to.
I'd like to follow up on that with Taylor, or maybe Ed or Ann know the answer. How is the website managed? Barton and LaJudas is primarily responsible for getting the questions. It sounds like Olivia is the person that they are corresponding with directly. They submit them through the portal. Are all those questions being passed on to the town boards so that we can see what people are inquiring about? What's the system for kind of the flow of information?
Yep. So the questions, when they're submitted on the website, Olivia gets a notice on her email. She has been responding back to the questioner that your comment has been received, just as confirmation. We then create, a simple log of the questions and turn those over, verbatim as they're written to the town.
So they be a part of the public record, but essentially you have to file a Freedom of Information Act request to get them. So again, we're picking and choosing.
I don't think so, Mr. Messina. That's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm just trying to understand a little bit more detailed exactly how the correspondence was working. But perhaps this is something that we can make sure, because I don't want to be here till midnight, Mr. Messina. I do apologize, but I don't think I'd make it that late.
Well, you're certainly free to depart the meeting, but there's a lot of people that this means a great deal to. So I think we need.
No, I understand. So I think that the supervisor's suggestion that we keep this open is sound, so that we can all have more time to make sure that, because Mr. Messinio, I don't know if everyone, even the rest of the attendees, would be able to stay on till it's hardly transparency in an open meeting if we're keeping it past the time that a lot of people would be able to stay awake. So I think we could I'd be interested to see, to make sure that all the questions that we have received and to make sure that we're just to understand a little bit better how those things are being posted through the portal and then back onto the website.
Yeah, and I think Caitlin, to your point, I mean, we have a lot of a lot of questions that I think we can as a board and with Taylor and Olivia, we can get a lot of these questions answered by the next meeting so that we can address them.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I've been very patient and I appreciate it. Just a couple very quick questions, and I'm glad we're not voting tonight because there's no way that we can make a determination. But Taylor, do you have an inventory as far as the average setback it would be for most of the homes involved in the entire district? How many feet back from the road? And then also, what is the status with the town of Sullivan? Because I did go on their website and look for their public hearing, which, unless I missed it, they haven't had it yet, nor has it been scheduled.
So we can certainly get you an inventory for the setbacks. And then for the Sullivan question, you know, they don't have a 202B process to follow. They have the Article 12 process. So just like we haven't got to the Article 12 process yet for the Manlius Salt Springs Road, Sullivan hasn't got to it yet for their portion. So the idea is that they would kind of follow, you know, in tandem with Manlius along a similar time frame. So
and they only meet once a week or once a month too, I think.
No, they're twice a month.
Yeah.
First
Are
and
they?
third Wednesdays, yeah.
Elaine, did you have your hand up?
I did, thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. So again, this is for the, no, miss it. It's not the Salt Springs.
Sky Ridge.
Sky Ridge.
Sky Ridge, thank you. So this is for the Sky Ridge Water District. And so what we're looking at right now is expanding that. So if we did approve that expansion, then petitioning still has to happen. And if it does not go well, if residents don't want this service, then the project doesn't go forward. Is that correct?
That would be accurate, I believe. Yep.
Okay. And then Sky Ridge would have to deal with their existing water district.
Yeah, they're back to square one with the repair work that we attempted to do 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, and then the only other thing, I just want to share a couple of thoughts if I could, because I mean, after hearing from many residents that this will affect, you know, I am concerned about the number of residents that we've heard from, but expanding access to public water, I would think it would be a positive project, but I am concerned about the cost to our residents, especially the ones who will not be using the service. But they wouldn't be using the service, but they'd have to contribute to the debt accumulated by it, correct?
I believe that's right, yeah.
But at the same time, I as far as I can understand that the water loop seems to make sense. It does seem to be a good idea. And then working with our neighboring town is also always a positive. So I am concerned about the cost of this to the residents located in the potential new water district. But I do believe it's also worth going through, like, right, we can't figure out that end cost without going through this very complicated process, including figuring out applying for grants to get that final cost. Is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay. So unfortunately, we have to go through this complicated process to find out if this is feasible, if this is supported by the residents, because at the end, as far as I understand it, at the end of the day, this decision will be decided by resident support. And for what I have seen to date, providing public water to this area is expensive. But if the community is in support of this expansion, it does seem like the time to do it now because of how much grant funding is available at this time to reduce that cost and to get public water to this area. But again, I understand this is a complicated process. I want to make sure everyone's following along with us.
You're doing fine.
And, okay. And yeah, I think that's it. And then I guess my other question is if we extend this another meeting, what does that do for the timeline? Is that okay?
I think the timeline is what it has to be for this complicated process. We are hoping to be ready enough to be eligible for grants when the grants come around. And that's really the focus of this summer's work is to have the process far enough along that when funding is available, we are eligible.
When would funding be available?
That's Taylor, I think you have those dates like August, September, something like that. What is it?
It's very rumor mill stuff, so don't hold me to that. But you know, the word on the street, if you will, is that the grants that we'd be looked to targeting might be you know, released this summer, and applications due, you know, August, September. Again, don't hold me to that. I have no guarantees. But Elaine, you brought up a great point that everything we're doing right now in this very complicated process, we have to get through the entire process to be eligible to apply for those grants. So it's a little bit, you know, cart before the horse type thing, but it's just the way the programs work.
That's a good way of putting it, Taylor, because that does make things a little more difficult. But I think really just to appease the concerns of us answering all these questions and the ones that Joe put forward as well, we need to have those in the public to see them, and so for us to respond to them, so everyone can see how we answer them. You know, as the professionals, that when it comes to, of course, the engineering questions and so on. And that I really would like to extend this if we could. I mean, we got one more meeting, you know, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, you know, but I think we'll get a better grasp of the process that we have to go through here, you know, before we move forward to the end process, you know.
Admia, just to say, first of all, I have been, you know, following this since starting my time on the board, and yet so much work had been done, pre-work had been done before then. Yeah. So trying to catch up to speed is important, but I've been really impressed with sort of the competency and the good communication that Sarah's had with the team. And I think what I've learned from this set of exchanges is that we have incredibly good intentions to make sure that every question gets exactly where it needs to go and gets logged properly. I feel like we have a pretty well-refined system, thanks to our clerk, Allison, and the communications review and programming we've been doing to make sure that as board members, we're all getting all of the pieces. Yep. And because of the forward thinking, we have a website for this project. We're doing everything possible to get as much good information out there and have an intake. We can take this moment to just double check that and review, be extremely intentional about with the process for getting public comment when it comes to another source versus our public comment form or an email to one of us directly. And that's the reason I think we should delay. But other than that, the information that's been presented, I just want everyone to know that I feel very comfortable moving forward with it, but I would like to check on that process.
Yeah, and I think answering all these questions, I'm not looking to debate. Once we answer, I'm not looking to answer another one. Let's answer the questions that are out there and then move on.
Mr. Supervisor, can I make a motion then to keep the meeting open?
Yeah, we can do that to the, what are we on, the 12th?
Before anyone seconds that, I know that it says that there are 24 open questions. Are we going to table all these questions until next town board meeting? Or are we going to address the questions that have been asked now?
Well, there's more people who want to talk too.
Yeah, I was going to say, Allison, would we be able to take down the Q&A in text and get that over to Barton and Judas?
Yeah.
Get those questions answered?
Sure. So I can run a variety of reports from the Zoom meeting. I'll just give you options, not suggesting one way or the other. I believe I have an understanding of the next 3 people that would like to speak, so I can hold that in the queue as long as they register next time the same as they did this time. And I can, after the meeting, I can, tomorrow I can just produce a spreadsheet for you and I can send it to you. I can send it to everyone here, letting them know what those questions were. You can, if they registered with an email address, you would be able to respond to them if the email address entered in was correct. Another option too is that, you know, these comments, someone could additionally go to our public comment form.
Yeah, and I think, said Nancy, Matt, and Sheila 2454, I think they may just be comments, not necessarily questions too. So, you know, we want them to be included in our next meeting with what they want to discuss. So that's what you're referring to, right, Allison? Oh, you're on mute.
Been a really long day. I've taken them down. So do you want me to keep those in place or do you want to hear from them?
We
If we stick to 3 minutes, can we let the folks that are queued up speak? That way we can handle the backlog of Q&A questions, handle the backlog of questions we received. And then that way no one feels, you know, shorted for being on for an hour without being able to speak.
I'd prefer if we like cut it off now. So like 7:47, any new questions that are put in, I don't want to leave these people. Maybe they can't come next time. Maybe they don't want to wait 2 weeks to hear. I don't think it'll take long. I just scrolled through a lot of these are just comments. I think we should give the people who have already put things in the chat or in the Q&A the opportunity to make sure their voice was heard this evening and then cut it off. And then we'll defer, like, so we're not continuing all evening because we will keep it open.
So I think, are you saying Nancy, Matt, and Sheila? Is that what you're saying?
Listen to give them 3 minutes each, whatever.
Yeah.
And then go through the Q&A.
Okay.
And just read what people have said.
Okay. All right. I will start that. Is that what?
I think we can come back to the Q&A. Let's just take the 3 that are up right now. Now 4. See, now Stuart's up there. So if we don't.
All right. I'm gonna start. I'll start with the Zlomax then. It looks like.
Yep, Matt.
Okay.
Oops. Sorry, Matt.
Okay.
I started the timer too
Go
soon.
ahead. You are able to talk.
Okay. First off, thanks so much to the Town of Manlius Board and everyone participating in this project. It is very complicated. You know, we have our own, I'm at 8792 Horseshoe Lane. And the question came up, you know, it seems like a lot of people on Horseshoe Lane are in favor of this. Just by way of background, we have our own association and we work with Aqua under the supervision of the Town of Manlius. So we've been looking at the water issue for a long, long time. And what I'd like to say is this, you know, having a safe, secure, reliable source of water is just like critical. It was interesting to me to hear the fluctuations of the wells and in our for Horseshoe Lane, but I can't help but think, since we share the same aquifer, that's true of basically, you know, this hill known as Salt Springs Road. I do think, and by the way, just you know, anecdotally, as you know, there was the hop/barley farmer on Salt Springs Road, just up from McClinton, who set up his barns and so on, and then drilled 2 wells and found that he couldn't get sufficient water for his operation. You know, I think to presume that we're always going to have an adequate source of water long-term may just be wishful thinking on our part. But nonetheless, this is an opportunity, as some of the counselors have pointed out, this is an opportunity where at a unique point in time, there's a tremendous attention on infrastructure. There's a willingness to make infrastructure spend here. We do have, I believe it's $1 or $2 million has been committed to the project by Assemblyman Al Sturpey, which is great. And there's also, as I heard on the call last time, the possibility that our congressional delegates might be able to get a member item to bring the cost of this project down to by 80% of the funding, of which those who would benefit from the project would be funding the 20%, which there's probably not going to be another point in time in our lifetime to make a project like this happen. And believe me, this, you know, as some people on the board are aware, you know, this is something that has been looked at and test done and costs reviewed for just about a decade now. I think Barton Lujudas has done a fabulous job of pulling this together and making a project that makes sense. The time from a borrowing standpoint, costs couldn't be lower. And also from a project cost standpoint, you know, here we are, projects, the ductile iron, you know, other costs for this project are just going to increase over time. I think we're looking at a period where this is a unique point in time that if you know, a majority of the residents decide that this is something that is important to them, that they don't want any more hard water, that they don't want to be you know, at the ebb and flows of droughts or you know, rainy seasons, as we know them to go back and forth. Fire protection. Anecdotally, you know, we had a big fire on Strawberry Lane. Thank God there was no fatality, but the thing burned to the ground. Again, you know, some people are saying that, well, hey, that's not important to me. Well, maybe it isn't until there's some sort of a tragedy. So I just think that again, it's unique. We have some funding committed to this project. There's a likelihood in my mind of getting additional funding to lower the cost to every resident who's going to participate is very high. And we are totally in support of this project. And I think the other thing too is that we live out, you know, it's a mixed blessing. If we lived in the municipality, you take like Syracuse, where you have neighbors door to door, granted, the cost of this, based on the number of people and the density, the cost per resident would be much lower. Here, the challenge is that, you know, we have a system that extends over an extended period by distance. And we have a number of neighbors, you know, some who have 5 acre plus lots, okay, and you know, very expensive homes, so on and so forth, and everything's relative. I mean, as you know, I know that there's I was listening to some of the costs to hook up. You know, certainly people can have the benefit of the water and choose to hook up at whatever time of their choosing. But relative to what it's going to do for their property values and as a relative basis on, let's say, assessed value, you know, over the period of time, particularly given 80% of the funding potentially here can come from sources other than residents, I just think that we'd be remiss to miss this huge opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A lot of information that I appreciate you sharing. Good to hear from you again. It's been a while.
Likewise, Ed. Thank you.
Hi, Matt.
And we
Hello,
have
Karen.
and we have up next there, Allison Sheila, is it? She's next.
Yes. I have another Matt who has had their hand up. So that was just the order that it came in.
Yep. Okay, then okay, let's finish them up here if we can. We're gonna do Matt first or Sheila?
Matt has been added and now I don't see him anymore.
Oh.
I'm not sure what happened. All right, I will allow, next I have Sheila.
Hello, yes, hi. So I just want to address, one of the questions was asked, what there seemed to be a clear divide and what was the reason for the divide? And I think the answer given was personal preference. And I think that that is really less than candid answer. I think it's fairly apparent that the 29 homes are seeking to have the additional 95 properties brought in to subsidize the cost of it. So clearly the people that would stand to benefit by having this improvement to their property are strongly in favor of it, kind of a common sense type response, whereas the people that do not stand to benefit don't see a benefit, while someone else may say hooking up to public water improves your property. It doesn't if you don't think so. So being forced to do something, somebody else may consider it an improvement to my property, but I make the decision on the improvements I want to make to my property. And so forcing me to do what you may think is an improvement is not an improvement. I see it as being forced to bear an expense for people that clearly I believe should be bearing the expense of the improvements to their property for their use, and also financially it makes their property more valuable. So I think really that is the answer to the question of why is there a clear divide. There's a question I do have though, the figures that were given in terms of if you go to your property and you have soil or if you have shallow rock. My understanding from people that have built here is that it's not shallow rock, it's deep rock. People have had to blast their basements, blast for pools. So I don't see, I know he showed a 20,000 plus figure for shallow rock. I don't see any figure for deep rock. And in addition to that, these people that had to blast, some people blasted to put in pools and other type. I don't have one personally, but I know people that did blast for that. And there's real risk to the existing structures when you do that kind of blasting. And so people that may want it, but because of a risk to their property, the structure, the basements, the foundations, the windows, that's a risk there that is not being considered, because whether it's shallow rock or deep rock, I think the deep rock is going to be far more expensive, although I'm definitely not an engineer. And my last question was, I think at our last meeting was when it was first disclosed about the 50-foot water tank being put on McClenton Road on the Meineken property. And I don't know if I missed it, but I don't know if anyone disclosed whether that property has been purchased, is under contract, what the figures are, and if that's reflected in the overall cost. So is that a figure that is the property already purchased? Is there a contingent offer on the property, and what are the numbers involved there?
Taylor, to answer that question, the property, yeah, that was Meinekens. I never get it right. I think they sold that to Morocco's or something, I think.
Yeah, Ed, so we have not purchased a property or, entered into any negotiation. Right. The town can't do that until, we get through all these steps. So where we've shown that tank, like you said, the Meineken property, I think that's changed hands. That's just the preferred location. There's no guarantees that it'll be exactly where we show it right now. Preliminary
so
plans.
Do you even know whether the owner of the property is willing to sell it, or has that even, where are you on that?
We did have a preliminary conversation with the current property owner, just to make sure that he would be open to the idea. And that was all the conversation was.
Okay, so the whatever that cost would be to purchase the property, is that number reflected anywhere? Or is that a future expense? That's a future expense that with an unknown number?
certainly the number is not known at the time. We do have a line item in the cost estimate for land purchase.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. All right.
But you don't know, what is the figure that you have in there?
Offhand, I don't know.
We can get that to you, Sheila.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you, Sheila. I know we have Stuart, I think. We can, I think, finish up with Stuart and then move on to, I think Karen made a motion. We can move on. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hear me?
Yes, you're a little echoey, but we got you, Stuart. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Honey, you want to turn yours down a little bit? Okay, just a couple of things. I lived next door to the Meineken property and also Dave Morocco's property. My understanding is that Dave bought part of what Meineken had originally owned after a subdivision, and Dave uses that for his own purpose. Meineken still retains the property where you propose to put the water tank. My understanding regarding the Meineken property is that he was not able to grow the hops or whatever was necessary for the production of beer, not because of a lack of water, but because the rock in our area is so close to the surface that there was not sufficient soil for that particular crop to grow. It just would not grow. There has never been an issue in the area where I live, which is on the corner of McClempton Road and Salt Springs, almost to the corner. There's never been an issue of insufficient water, but there's something that I'd like to throw out, and it'll probably take about 1 minute.
Sure, go ahead.
My understanding is that in this proposed district, there are 126 properties. 29 of those homes are in the Sky Ridge Water District, those being on Salt Springs Road, Gulf Road, and Horseshoe Lane. If you subtract the 29 homes in the Sky Ridge Water District, that district being represented so strongly by the residents there are still 97 residents, or 77% of the total residents affected, who would be affected by this proposed district. Now, working with your figures that were presented to the board of $1,194 per year for the cost of the water and the $2,700, if you add that together, the $2,700 plus the $1,194, multiply that by 97. That's the number of people who are not in the Sky Ridge Water District and would not tend to necessarily benefit from this in any way. In the first year, if you just talk about the hookup and the annual cost for the 97 people, that's $377,718. Divide that amount of money which those 97 people outside of the Sky Ridge Water District by the number of people in the Sky Ridge Water District, which is 29. And you'll find that the people in the Sky Ridge Water District are benefiting to the tune of $13,024 from the people outside of their water, outside of their water district. That, in my mind, amounts to unquestionably what would be referred to legally, and I, understand that the town attorney is in on this call too. That amounts to unjust enrichment. In other words, the people in the Sky Ridge Water District are benefiting from the 97 property owners outside of their district by that amount. And you have to consider additionally, as I understand it, a gentleman earlier said that there would be no cost to hook up any public water that might come through if this district were approved to the people at Sky Ridge. Now, my home on McClempton is probably 100 to 120 feet away from the road. And the rock here is so prevalent and overwhelming that my contractor, when the house was built, had to bring in topsoil so that I could have grass. So it would cost me a heck of a lot more than $2,700. So I want to point out those numbers to the board and everyone who is listening, that what is being proposed here really is a forced unjust enrichment by the town, if it is approved, upon the 97 people who are outside of the Sky Ridge district. And that's the end of my comment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stuart. Hey, Doug, can you refresh my memory on that Meineken property and why he was unable to get that water? I thought it had to do with the digging and everything was collapsing, and he wasn't able to get that water because of the soil and the rock. I forget what you're the engineer, help me out here.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago. I don't quite recall, Ed.
Oh, okay. I'll look at my notes. I'm sure I have them somewhere then. So
Yeah, I can look it up.
yeah,
I can look at the.
I remember there was some problem with him with that, and it just wouldn't hold water, so to speak. So, all right.
I just wanted to clarify again something I heard, because I want to make sure I understand. People were making comments even though we had talked about a clarification.
Yep.
So I need to understand this.
Sure.
We're talking, the stage we're at now is of course approving the moving forward of a plan, but the final say will still be with the people through the petition process.
Correct.
The people will ultimately decide through the petition process. So you don't have to worry about the board ramming anything down any neighbor's throats. You have to worry about the transparency, to worry about, it's good to sort of get clarification about these questions about the benefits and costs, because there are perceived benefits of costs. It's pretty arguable, because we heard comments tonight about the benefits of having access to the water for fire protection. And we also heard property values, and whether people value those or not, that's exactly their own choice. There are people on Salt Springs I know who have already said they're in favor of it, so that number is lower anyway. But the petition process confirms all that. Is that right?
That, I believe that would be accurate, right, Taylor? And Rich?
Yeah, this is Rich. That's correct. Again, maybe at the beginning of the next meeting, we can just give an overview about what the process is and the different procedures and kind of where we're at with those different procedures. But again, tonight we're dealing with, under the town law, what's called a 202B process, which is a process under the town law for water improvements for existing water districts, which is an existing legal entity to provide public water. The Salt Springs district in Manlius and the Salt Springs district in Sullivan are proposed and would be part of a larger joint project that includes the existing Sky Ridge. To form those two districts, and a lot of the people tonight are from Salt Springs Road, you need to go through a petition process under the town law, right, which requires 50% of the total assessed value on the petition from resident owners, and also a public hearing process for both those districts. So if the board approved the 202B project, that does not commit the approval or the formation of the Salt Springs Road District in either Manlius or Sullivan. So those are separate legal processes and separate legal procedures that still need to be undertaken before anything is approved. And again, if you don't get the signatures on the petition, then those districts can't go forward. So as was earlier said, there's not really a way to, I guess, force this down onto the residents just by virtue of the 202B process.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification.
I know that, I think Karen made a motion to extend this to the next board meeting on May 12th.
I'll second.
Supervisor, do you think there would be any interest in having a special meeting of the town board rather than adding this to the agenda for the next meeting, assuming that it goes for an hour and a half again?
Well, I don't think we need to do that. I think if we go the normal route and we can get this wrapped up, I think at the next meeting, Caitlin.
Okay.
So John, you seconded it?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, very good. So we don't need a motion to come out, right? Because we're still in, is that right, Tim? We can move on to. Yes,
Mr. Supervisor, just so you know, I am going to, in order to be able to close out the Q&A for our next public hearing, I am going to go into the comments that currently exist. And I am going to say answer live and then hit done, but I have recorded where they start and where they end. So I just don't want people to think that they are being dismissed in any way.
No, there were some good ones in there that I know that I'd like to make sure we respond to, which I think some of them are pretty easy to answer, but let's wait till the next meeting. So, all right, so we are moving on then.
Mr. Supervisor, can I make a request?
Sure, Kayla, what's up?
We have several students waiting to present from SUNY ESF, and I wondered if we could allow them to go first before we do the next public hearing so they can get through their brief presentation.
You know, you're right. I didn't see that one here. I almost went over it to the next. Yeah, sure. They're 7, right?
And
we
on
can,
the agenda, it's
yep.
I don't know if you still have the old one, but there's a public hearing number 8 for the zone change on South Burdick Street, and then SUNY ESF was number 9. So if we could just have.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, they moved it around a little bit on me. Okay, yeah, we can have them sneak in. Sure.
And can I just interject real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to confirm we're going to push the seeker portion to the next meeting as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
thank you so much.
And then we'll talk about answering the questions and getting that out to everybody who participated tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Taylor.
And Caitlin, normally we hold, but this shouldn't go too long, right, with the students here?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, okay, we can, we'll just reverse 8 and 9. I got 2 sheets going now. So we'll go with the SUNY ESF community greenhouse gases inventory that the students want to speak. You have one representative, or what do we got going on?
Just give me a moment and I will promote everyone to panelists.
Thank you. Again, John, we need to get live and in person here.
I have started in motion a process that is a much better solution to the microphones we're looking at, and hopefully if everything ships on time, we'll be able to test it within a week or 2.
Great.
We have an impending deadline of the executive order that allows us to do this expiring. Yeah. So, we are up against the wall. I just have found something that I think will work really well for hybrid meetings, as opposed to just this kind of like us meeting in person and folks watching from home.
And I think, I don't know if all of you are vaccinated, but now with the new, rulings that came out, we're getting a little more, not lax, but we're getting more freedom where we can all meet in the same room and mask or no mask,
So I just had one participant in here, Addison, and Amanda, I don't see her in here.
Yes, Addison, he actually had to leave and go to work. We weren't expecting such a long public hearing. So the other students and I will fill in for Addison.
Okay. All right. So you screen share is enabled, so you can go right ahead.
Okay, I am just going to do a quick introduction and then let the students take over. So for those who are not familiar, my name is Amanda Mazzoni. I'm a principal planner at the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. I have been working with the town to work through the Climate Smart Communities Certification Program, as well as the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program. And so I've been working closely with the Sustainable Manlius group and town staff on those efforts. As part of that, the town requested that we assist with compiling a municipal operations greenhouse gas inventory, as well as a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory. I am compiling the community inventory at the moment. It's not complete yet. We started that process a little bit after the students began their work. So the students are here tonight before the end of their semester to present the findings of the municipal operations greenhouse gas inventory. Just so everyone's aware, the next steps are to use these the final reports that the students and I will provide to submit through the Climate Smart Communities Certification Program. There is a July 2nd deadline, which the Sustainable Manlius group is working to submit by. So these reports that we are compiling will be used towards that effort. So with that, I will just hand it over to Atif and Cooper, who are part of the ESF's environmental and energy auditing class. So Atif and Cooper, you can take it away and share your screen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cooper Pyle. Like Amanda said, I am currently a student at ESF, and I'm just trying to share my screen here. Sorry, you're looking at the wrong thing. There we go. Okay, so unfortunately, Addison couldn't be with us tonight, so it's just myself and Atif, but we will try our best. All right. All right, so one of the biggest factors of greenhouse gas emissions, at least in New York, is going to be climate change effects, such as sea level rise on the coasts, changing weather patterns, and we know here up in upstate New York, we already have plenty of that. So it's just it's a core issue that needs to be addressed, and we felt that this was a great way to try to figure out the roots of an issue, at least on the municipal scale. All right, so I'm sure most of you are aware of the Climate Smart Communities certification program in New York. And that's just a way for the government to help communities adapt to a changing climate, and through actions such as creating a greenhouse gas emissions report, we're also able to take a look at how we can try to solve that. All right, so for our inventory, what we did is we calculated the greenhouse gas emissions from 3 selected sectors that Atif will discuss in the next slide. We identified ways to reduce those emissions with certain recommendations based on those sectors. And then hopefully the town of Manlius can use those recommendations as well as those sectors to become a certified climate smart community. All right.
So hi everyone, my name is Atif. I will be discussing the method section. So what we actually did, we used ECLI protocol to understand what kind of emissions we will be taking care of. So as ECLI protocol defines, there are basically 3 scopes of emissions. Scope 1 emissions, which takes into account emissions from the direct emissions from equipment which is owned by a municipality. Scope 2 emissions, which are indirect emissions coming from purchased electricity and steam and heating stuff for municipal operations. And their third scope 3 emissions, they are all indirect emissions which were not taken account by the scope 2, like waste disposal, emissions from agricultural lands. In this project, we only considered emissions from scope 1 and scope 2, and there were 3 sectors or departments. Building and facilities. In building and facilities, we accounted for emissions from electricity and natural gas, which is being consumed in building and facilities. For street lights, electricity usage we took into account, and for vehicle fleet sector, We took account of vehicles which are operating either on kerosene, gasoline, or diesel, and we used EPA local greenhouse gas inventory tool to calculate the emissions for these three sectors. Cooper, can you change the slide? Thank you. These are the data which we excluded because pump stations have been turned over to Onondaga County. So we did not take account for these facilities, like they are all pump stations. Next slide. And yeah, here are the findings. For streetlight section, we found out the total energy consumption, annual total energy consumption is 160,390 kilowatt hours, and total emissions which are contributed by streetlights are 18.49 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Next slide. For vehicle fleet sector, the total emissions were around 770 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. When we separated individually for diesel, kerosene, and gasoline, we observed that the emissions coming from diesel fuel, they are almost 50% of the whole emissions of the vehicle fleet sector. Emissions from diesel are 388 metric tons. From kerosene, they are the least, 69.75 metric tons, and for gasoline, they are fair share, like 41%, 313 metric tons. But the thing to notice here, like diesel emissions are almost half of the total vehicle fleet sector. Cooper, it's your part.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
All right. So for the buildings and facilities, we measured it in kilowatt hours for electricity use of the buildings as well as stationary combustion, so heat, natural gas. So we can see through the stationary combustion or the use of natural gas, we used a total of 14.4 metric tons of CO2 equivalents and 71.68 metric tons through kilowatt hours of electricity. All right, so this was the total emissions across all three sectors in the town of Manlius. We can see that the bulk of it, or the absolute majority, was from the vehicle fleet, with an 88% of the entire emissions of 770.75 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. Second largest being the buildings and facilities, and the streetlights being the least. Atif, do you have anything to add for this one?
Sure. And like total emissions for 2019 year, the year we inventoried the Manlius town is 875 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And as Cooper mentioned earlier, the major chunk of these emissions comes from vehicle fleet sector, which contribute towards 88% emissions of the whole town. And just in that vehicle fleet sector, the diesel emissions are 50%. And for gasoline and kerosene emissions are other 50%. For building and facilities, they only contribute about 10% to the total emissions of Manlius town for 2019 year. And for street lights, their GHG emissions are pretty low, like only 2%. And the other pattern is that in winter, street lights are being used more. So winter consumption of street lights is way more than the rest of the year. Next slide, please. Cooper. Next slide.
Yeah, my computer's just
okay.
lagging out here.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, it looks like my computer is frozen.
I can share my screen. I can take it from here. Just give me a minute.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Okay. final slide recommendations. So what Manlius town can do to reduce emissions from vehicle fleet sector. So first thing they can do, like use electric vehicles. Ideally, they don't emit anything. They are emission free. The second recommendation will be to use natural gas vehicles. If they use that, the emissions will be reduced to there will be 11% reduction as compared to gasoline and diesel. The third thing they can do is use biofuels. Like if they use ethanol 85, the emissions will be reduced by 34%. But the problem with using ethanol 85 is like only flexible fuel vehicles can actually operate on ethanol 85. There are different blends of ethanol, usually E15, in which 15% is ethanol and 85% is gasoline. I guess pretty much every vehicle which was manufactured after 2001 or during 2001 can operate on E15, but for E85, only flexible fuel vehicles can operate on E85. For biodiesel B20 blend, there will be reduction of almost 20% as compared to the B100. Like if you are using 100% biodiesel fuel, compared to that, B20 blend will give you 20% reductions in GHG.
And then we can also recommend some upgrades in the buildings department, since that's the second largest sector of emissions, such as employing energy audits to assess areas of improvement, such as insulation, energy efficient windows, energy efficient lighting, things of that nature. And then
to supply for all those things, that would work.
Right. That's about what we've got.
Well, thank you. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
So I just want to, unless there are any questions, I'll just close by saying that just a reminder again that the students will be providing a full report within the next couple of weeks that includes this information, and that can be used as a submittal towards the Climate Smart certification program. And I will also be providing the findings of the community-wide inventory, which will take into account everything else in the community, whereas this is just for municipal operations. And that should also be ready before that July 2nd deadline. But otherwise, I mean, please let us know if you have any other questions, but otherwise, thank you very much for your time tonight.
This is great. And thanks to Addison as well. I'm sorry we weren't able to get him in.
Yes, thank you all so much for coming. And we are working on, through clean energy communities and climate smart communities, as well as other New York State grants, we are working on getting some electric vehicles for the town. So that would help to reduce our emissions, since clearly it's the vehicles that are the major cause of emissions. So this is very informative and makes it all the more important that we aggressively pursue that avenue for the town. So thank you for, that was very eye-opening, and I really appreciate your efforts. Sorry that we're a little bit behind schedule. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank Caitlin for pushing you ahead.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Amanda. Thank you for all of your hard work in helping our community. We appreciate that as well.
Sure. Thanks.
Good. Well, I got a lot of questions for you about all the fuel things that they were mentioning there. So
yeah,
for another time.
I think that if we had more time, we could probably have an interesting discussion now, but I move that we table that and have it another time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to answer questions later on if anyone has them. And certainly we can refer a lot of the questions to Amanda as well, and to the team at ESF. Hold on 1 second, sweetie.
Sounds good. All right,
Thank
very
you.
good. Well, that was very interesting and informative. And so now we're going to switch around here. So now we do have here we go. All right. The Morocco, oh, here, yes, I'm in the right one now. Public hearing, we need to, oh, geez, we got to open up a public hearing. Yeah, this is for the zone change that has been brought back to us from the planning board, if I'm not mistaken. Tim, you want to give us an overview, I think, of you sent us the resolutions and things like that, but do you want to give us an overview of the zone change and where we are with that?
Yeah, yes, the applicant has requested that the property behind the parking lot of the Craftsman, it's up high, the home that's now used kind of for conferences for the Craftsman, requesting that residence or the RA property be zoned to RM. I think everybody knows where the property is. The transition from a residential neighborhood to the commercial neighborhood on Genesee Street, this kind of sits in the middle of it, and the board felt that the request of the applicant made sense to allow for a professional office building, professional office, to use the existing house as a professional office building. Before we get into the public hearing, I think we really probably should do a seeker determination just to make sure that we follow that process, and then we can go into the public hearing. Hear from the applicant if you want, but in the end, the property as it sits is going to pretty much stay the way it is, as I understand it. And if we go to RM, there are rules and regulations under the RM which would provide a process for any changes. Frankly, RM really requires any existing buildings that sit on a site to maintain their residential nature. So any changes to the building would require a site plan approval process. But we could talk about that or ask questions as we move into the public hearing. So
with regard to seeker, since there's no external change to the property, is this does this even require a seeker determination?
Yeah, it's an action. We are changing the use from a residential use, a residential RA use to a RM use. So the uses that would be allowed on the property are going to be different than the uses that are allowed on the property today. But I think the board thinks it makes sense, the uses that are allowed under RM for this project. But yes, we do have to at least consider the environmental impacts of going from an RA district to an RM district. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to declare ourselves the lead agency for this unlisted project, that would be great.
So I would make a motion to declare the town of Manlius lead agency for this unlisted seeker action.
And I'll second it.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good.
And I have filled out part 1 of the short environmental assessment form, and we can quickly go through part 2, which are the 11 questions that determine whether or not it will have a significant to small impact or a moderate to large impact. I have reviewed it. I think all the questions indicate a no to small impact, but ultimately it's up to you. So you let me know if you disagree. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an updated land use plan or zoning regulation? The answer to that is no, because of where it's situated between an R1 and a commercial district. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use intensity or the intensity of use of the land? If it does, it will have a small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of existing community? As I said, this property is right now being used for conferences for the property along Genesee Street. So I would say no to small. Will it affect the CEA? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or existing infrastructure, mass transit, biking, or walkways?
No.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use or energy use and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No to small. Will it impact public water supplies, public or private water supplies? No. Or public and private wastewater treatment utilities? That's already on public water and public sewer. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources.
Will actually help preserve an architectural resource.
I think you're right. I agree with that. So the answer to that is no to small. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No.
No,
Okay. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
no,
Small. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
no.
No to small. So based on the answers to those 11 questions, I think that I think that it would be appropriate to issue a negative declaration under seeker if anybody wanted to make that motion.
So I'd make a move to make a negative declaration for the zone change at 112 South Burdick Street.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? Okay.
Now, Mr. Supervisor, you're in a position to waive the reading of the public hearing and open the public hearing.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Just before we do open I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have, I see Dave here and I don't see Matt. Is he with you? You're not mute. There you go.
He's in some other township tonight, somewhere 4 hours away.
Well, you're there if we need to have any particular questions answered by the public. So just want to make sure that everyone knew you were there.
Yeah,
So,
he's available, Matt, if I need him.
okay, very good. So we do need a motion to open the public hearing.
So I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Carried. And as usual, we're very used to these public hearings of late. If there is anyone out there, and I know Allison, you'll let me know whether I don't see anything popping up yet. But if you do, I just ask that they again identify themselves and add any questions or comments. They're more than would like to have them in the queue, so give them a couple minutes. Okay. What do you think?
I don't see anything. We had received some letters initially in the beginning when the request was, before the request was RM.
Okay.
But we had not received anything. We did, just so you know, we did send out a neighbor notification. We mailed letters to all the residents within 1,000 feet
Right.
of this parcel. And we had not received anything back.
Regarding the questions, I'm trying to refresh my memory on that. Was there anything in particular that was asked that maybe Dave could answer, or anyone?
They were handled at the initial meeting just by the change of zoning to RM.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. So we're good. We're good to go.
I think the other thing that happened was we did hear back from Onondaga County.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, we heard back from Onondaga County and they have determined that the project will not have any countywide impact. We also heard back from the planning board on a referral that we requested from them. The planning board has provided a positive recommendation on the zone change. There is one issue that the planning board had, and that was the fact that the existing property does not have a site plan filed with the town planning board.
Yeah.
And I am recommending that we ask the applicant before if the board goes forward and approves this zone change, that we get an existing structure survey with the driveway, whatever lighting's on the property. So we have a base site plan to review and to be filed in the planning board in case there are any changes to the property in the future. We'll know what the base site plan is. So that would be a request that I think this town board should make before any zone change is approved.
And that's in the resolution that was circulated.
Right. Okay. All right. I think,
But do you have any issues with that?
no.
I'm agreeable to it, Dave Morocco.
And Dave and I have been talking about it along with Matt, so I think we're on the right track.
Seen
It
it
should,
now. Yep.
should be a pretty simple site plan, Dave.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I don't think we have anyone in the public speaking, so if we want to come out of the public hearing.
So motion to close the public hearing?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? And carried. Very good. That was quick, huh, Caitlin? Huh? That was faster.
It's the Lightning Twins, Bollinger and Green.
We're still awake.
Yeah.
Everything we do is easy.
All right, now that.
Thank you.
Yep, very good. And
So, Mr. Supervisor, I have prepared a resolution to approve the local law.
Yep.
So it includes the requirement for an existing site plan, as we discussed.
Yep.
And also authorize the supervisor to remove the restrictive covenant that's on the property. If you recall, there was a restrictive covenant on the property. So that is no longer necessary if it gets zoned as RM, because it will be subject to the RM zoning and the changes to the RM zoning and the use is allowed in the RM zoning.
Yep, very good. Yeah, I saw that. So we need a
Just a
motion.
question.
Yep, go ahead.
So because the resolution includes that provision about the survey map, so that has to be required in order for the zone change to take effect?
So we will not file, the clerk will not file the zone change or this local law with the Secretary of State. She's supposed to file it within 20 days. She will not file it until we get that site plan.
Which
Okay,
we can approve this now. Or vote on it now, Tim.
Yeah, and if we don't get it within 20 days, then we won't file it and then the law doesn't go into effect.
Okay.
I would think we'd get it within a week, wouldn't you, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, so I don't.
Yeah, I think it's 20 business days for the filing of the local law, so it's a little longer than 20 days, but if we can get it, the quicker we get it into the planning office, the quicker we can file it with the Secretary of State.
Sounds
I think it's great. I think that's what we like to see in Manly, is such a great use of a historical property like that, the Shipway House. So tucked away and it'll be restored and loved.
It was my kid's idea. I'm spending their inheritance. Restoring the place.
They're smart kids.
Oh, then do I have a public workshop for you to attend next week to talk about the future of Manlius?
Oh boy. All right, include Fayetteville Manlius. All right. I like
Dave would be good. He could do past and future, right, Dave?
whatever.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
I'm getting older now. Now I want to evaluate everything that's going on. If I can help, I'll do it.
Very good.
Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
you guys.
All right, if so, with that, going forward, we need a motion here for the local law.
So we'll move to pass the local law as the resolution that was presented and distributed to everybody.
I'll second it.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. And again, that is based on the site plan and all that we got. Okay. All right, a little update here on the zone change request for the TH Kinsella. I'm just going to read this because I think this says it all, Allison, that you put in here. This is regarding the TH Kinsella Commercial District and RA to Natural Resource Removal District. The town has received several calls and correspondence regarding the proposed zone change. The town board will be giving an update on the status of the project at the informational meeting. The town board will be reviewing the resolution submitted by the Onondaga County Planning Board. No vote will be taken at this meeting. This is just for updated purposes only. And again, the zone change application can be found. I believe that's on our town website, that link there. So, and I don't know if we've set a date for that yet, John. I know you were working on
Well,
that.
actually, Elaine's got something prepared for this agenda item.
So I do have something prepared. So I know when Kinsella came and presented to us, we didn't really get to have a discussion about that application. And now I know everyone's had time to really review and look into this. I wanted to kind of give a kind of a statement, I guess.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I do. First, I want to thank all the residents that have reached out to us with their concerns about the zone change. I have many of the same concerns, and the board itself has sent a list of questions to Kinsella. I also want to thank Kinsella for their presentation on March 24th. It was interesting to see where their product is used, to see what their product is used for. But I am also interested in learning more about how the natural resource is mined, and I will continue to look into that. As I have said, almost each time that we've considered a zone change request, especially with the larger requests, we need a comprehensive land use plan to help us make these decisions. A zone change, of course, is one of the most impactful decisions the town board can make, and the voices of our residents need to be at that forefront of these decisions. By creating a land use plan, the community will have created a guide as to how our land should be used and maintained for future generations. We are now in that process of creating a comprehensive land use plan. We have hired BNL to gather our assets, and we will start community meetings in the coming months to gather resident input from surveys, meetings, and more. Next month, I believe it might be next week, we will be we'll be having a public meeting. And in that next month, we'll be forming the steering committee made up of residents from across the town to help engage our community in that process. This request is a perfect example of the importance of a land use plan, and in particular, the natural resource removal district, where the land itself would be dramatically changed. Important questions about our zoning code need to be asked during the creation of the land use plan for the town of Manlius, including what the future of mining should be in the town. Is mining still an appropriate use with our current density? If so, how close should it be allowed to residential parcels and infrastructure? We need time to ask our community these questions and collectively develop our land use plan before we can consider a new natural resource removal district, a decision that would impact our town for the next 50 years and more. I encourage Kinsella to be engaged in this process as we create our land use plan with our residents and our business owners. But at this time, I feel like the town cannot consider this request for the creation of a new resource removal district until we have a comprehensive land use plan. And I know we were going to talk about the county recommendations or the county resolution as well, and they specifically list looking at or referring to a plan for the town. Well, we're working on that plan, and so we need time to make that plan to see how this fits within that. That's my.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I also believe in, private property rights. And, we need to take that into consideration, which the Kinsellas do have a right to go through the process that we have currently in place. I personally, I get what you're saying regarding the comprehensive plan and land use and that's about a year away before that's actually,
It is.
And I'd rather continue the proposed meeting to discuss whether or not we can go forward without waiting for the comprehensive plan land use process.
But my only concern with that is because we've gotten this request, this application. Yeah. I've taken a look at our natural resource removal district, and I have many concerns with it right now. And so, in order to even consider an application to use this very heavy and use zoning area, we need to really examine that. Our code. We need to examine our code.
Elaine, wasn't that the plan to have? If I'm not mistaken, Sarah, we were having experts that we were going to have on this panel.
And that still can happen.
Pardon me?
It still can happen. I think it's too soon right now. And I think we need more time.
And I think the idea too is this is just, I mean, this kind of zone change is so impactful that we are about to have a conversation about what all of the residents want to see when it comes to the future of the town. And we need to have a conversation about what we want to do with our natural resources, renewable and not, like the quarry. And the idea is, rather than a targeted meeting on this quarry, we can bring in experts to decide and help folks in the town get educated on the impacts of resource removal, and we can come up with a comprehensive plan. And quite honestly, when you look at what the Onondaga County Planning Board has sent us, you know, encouraging to consider potential environmental impacts of the zone change and all the stuff that they list, we need to get a better understanding of resource removal and get an understanding of what the public wants. And so rather than trying to solve this particular problem now, we're going to be in the process of essentially holding multiple public hearings on resource removal and land use in the town. And so that is a pretty comprehensive process that will allow us to make an informed decision, knowing, you know, exactly what the residents want.
Well, don't we currently have a quarry that we can grab that experience from, that we can learn from, that's already in the town, that is being used?
And we're going to take the time to do that.
But we've already been doing that the last 50 years. They've been in the town. We had a committee that followed them, that followed the procedures to make sure things were done properly over there when they expanded their quarry.
But we built a neighborhood. That quarry has been there for 50 years. We built a neighborhood there with the understanding that quarry, when you built your house, you knew the quarry was there. This is different. This is the houses are, we have residents living there right now, and we need to look at we need to look at where we are in 2021 right now to see how we can plan for the future. And that's what we're trying to do right now. And I think we could be in a better position to look at this.
I got some thoughts as well. You don't mind? So I don't think that we can get a irreversible and glacial impact on a huge swath of the town without knowing how, like, it's not just a zone change like the one we just passed a couple minutes ago. We're not saying, well, we're not making any zone changes, we're done with the comprehensive plan. We're saying that we're not going to permanently scar our community with a quarry. Maybe it's the perfect place for one, but we don't know that until we have the outcome of the comprehensive plan. If we're going to take drastic action and irreversibly change our community, and we're just at the beginning of the comprehensive planning process. I mean, we considered the inland port in Manoa for well over a year. So we're not saying we're just not going to talk about it till the comprehensive plan is done. We're going to say that this will be a discussion as a part of the comprehensive planning process, because you cannot make this decision in a vacuum. And I will not be making this decision in a vacuum. I will be doing this as a part of the comprehensive planning process.
I would agree that this is exactly why we're taking the time to do the comprehensive planning. I think that we're talking about 100-year plus impact. That's very clear.
Permanent, like forever impact, forever. That's right. It never goes away.
This is a decision that as local government officials will be one of the most important things we do in service. And so I understand, I believe that that Kinsella understands this industry really, really well, and also understands that this is a long process for the same reason. And so they're coming in good faith with their proposal, and I'm sure they're willing to go through that process, and they don't want it blocked. And I want to be really clear, there is no intention to block the proposal in any way, shape, or form. The conversation needs to happen, but it's not happening in parallel to the comprehensive plan process. It needs to happen to make sure it's not happening, any decision making is happening outside of the comprehensive planning process. It needs to be included in it, in my view.
I hear what you're saying, but when someone says permanently scar, that means you've already made your decision. You know, so
I know it's the nature of digging with limestone.
Let me finish. All I'm saying is that I understand totally, Elaine, what you're saying, and you made a lot of sense when it came to the fact that the quarry was there before the residents were at the existing site. You know, so that has valid argument, I believe. Again, I just think that there's a process that we've always gone through, and I get the comprehensive plan, and I know that's a big deal and everything, but I'm just saying we've always done a process, and I've read all of the residents' complaints, and I totally understand the concerns in their backyard about mining and blasting and the water and whatever's going to be affected. But that's why I thought we were going to have a panel discussion to address these things. I mean, look, and I agree with you too. I think the Kinsellas, I think they're Heather, very reasonable in their understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and what we have in front of us to talk about. You know, I just didn't want to disregard their request without
no
process.
I really want to, because we had this presentation that was really short and we didn't get really able to have a discussion with the town board. And then this kind of meeting, this informational meeting came up, and I think it is a good idea, but I think we have to get our, like, again, we've sent a bunch of questions to Consella. I'm looking forward to their answers to those. We're going to keep doing our research. I just want to make sure we're telling we announced this informational meeting, and I don't believe we're ready to do that. It's a very big project. And we need time to make sure we're ready for that. And again, with the announcement of it, I know a lot of the residents were very concerned, like, where is it? When is it? We need to make sure that is very well planned, that everyone has enough time to watch it, to be able to attend if they can, whether we're virtual, whether we're in person. And so I'm just asking for time to get those answers that we have just sent them, to keep that back and forth open. We want to do more research, and then we will have that informational meeting, but not next month. That's all.
Can I also, okay, please, I've spoken, but I have my hand up for it to be in the queue. Please, Karen.
And then Karen. Heather, go ahead.
Okay, I'll be quick. One, I'm wondering about the appropriateness or the possibility of being able to share with the public the questions we've sent.
Yeah.
Is that private, or is that something we can share with folks, the questions we've asked?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we share with the public the questions we've already asked and that we're waiting on answers for? And then two, oh yes, many people have longer views, and this is a multi-generational company. You know, many people have longer views than I do. I was, born here in the 70s and didn't become aware of what was going on for a lot longer. And there's history and understanding about the town's relationship and how the town has worked with the company and how the residents have worked. And there's all this information. And do you know why I know anything about it? Just because Elaine did the research of looking up all of the references in the newspapers and looking at our minutes and understanding what a bit of a timeline. And you know what, that's just one-sided. That's Elaine doing what was publicly there. We need to investigate that and get a full view so that we are doing right by the people. I cannot make decisions about this in with my tunnel vision about this, and also with my biases. I have a real strong sustainability bias, but I don't know how that relates to. I don't know what the best practices are for what comes after the mine. I don't know, and there's a learning process that has to happen, which is one of the reasons we will have that panel. But I'm committed to making sure that I am representing the scope of understanding and views on this.
Yeah,
and
this is good conversation. I think it's important. Karen, what did you want to add?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, it sounds like there's already been a lot of conversation with this project that I haven't been privy to, because I thought we were going to have the informational hearings that we had performed on the project in DeWitt, and I was looking forward to that, actually. you know, because the Kinsellas certainly have been great stewards of the land and advocates of this community for generations. We know they're a viable applicant. They have come before the town for a request, and I think we have a responsibility, just as we would anyone, to go through the process. And if it takes us learning more about land use, geology, a lot can be learned certainly from the Kinsellas themselves, and an informational hearing. But to push a decision down the road until a comprehensive plan is developed, you know, there's been talk in the town of a comprehensive plan for 15 years. So anyway, I think as a town board that we need to take responsibility to work with the applicant in whatever way we're required.
And that's all I was saying, Karen, but I see that we do have with us tonight.
And I had a follow-up to what Karen was saying before you transition to someone else or a different subject. I was hoping that Tim could explain a little bit the process that Karen and you, Mr. Supervisor, have mentioned a couple of times, like our obligations and the process that we've always done. Tim, could you expand on really what it is that we're required to do?
So the applicant has requested a zone change. The property now is, I think, zoned restrictive agricultural and some commercial A, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a separate zone in the town of Manlius called the Resource Recovery District, NRDD, Natural Resource something. Tom, you know what it is better than I do. So, so the NRDD district allows for quarrying or for removal of natural resources. It's like any other zone change request that this town board would receive. As I have said too many times to count, a zone change is different than, a zone change request is different than a site plan, for instance, or a subdivision request, or a special permit request. Under state statute, there are specific timeframes that you have to meet if you're going to do a subdivision or a site plan or a special use permit. You know, within 62 days of receiving a completed application for a subdivision, for instance, you're supposed to hold a public hearing. And then within 62 days after the public hearing is closed, you have to make a decision. Under subdivision plans, if you don't do that, there is what's called a default subdivision approval. And you run the risk if you don't meet those timeframes that there will be a consequences for not doing that. Site plan, there is no default site plan approval. Special permit, there is no default special permit approval either. But the applicant would certainly have his their rights under those types of things, under those three types of approvals that the town would give. A zone change is really a change in the law. It would be a change to our zoning map, and it is in the discretion of the town board. In order to change the local law or to pass a local law, we are required to have a public hearing. And Mr. Schultz and I have been discussing the issue of lead agency and whether or not the town board should declare itself the lead agency. You know, you're supposed to do that as early in the process as you can. That's really for land use planning type of approvals. And Mr. Schultz is on the call. He can weigh in after I'm done if he disagrees with me. But for zone change, if the board decided, no, this isn't something we're not interested in changing the zoning, then I don't think you need to even go through a process. I think this board has indicated it wants to go through a process, wants to consider it. And now it's just a matter of working with the applicant to get the time the town board thinks it needs to understand what quarrying for this property would actually mean. So, so the process is really different than subdivision site plans or special permits. Then overlaid on top of all of this is the fact that the state of New York, through the Department of Environmental Conservation, is the entity that would ultimately approve a quarry in the town. I don't believe they would do that without it being properly zoned for quarrying. So I think that's part of the complication here. So does that answer your question, Caitlin?
Yeah.
So I think it does. And the reason why I was asking is that it seems like there's the Ed and Karen are making is that we have an obligation to a process and I think that we could certainly pay Kinsella and this request for a zone change all the respect that we give to other people who have submitted zone change requests, but we are not under any obligation to start that process in May or to complete that process within any predetermined amount of time. And I think that it's our obligation is to the community and to the members of the community and to the future of our community and to its environment and to its people, to hear from them before we pay all the due respect to the corporation who has submitted the request for a zone change.
And I just,
Caitlin, I wasn't trying to rush this. All I'm saying, and I agree with Karen, that we had discussed having this informational meeting, and suddenly we've done a big turnaround that we're not aware of, and now we're getting it explained to us tonight. And so that's all I was saying. Why not? Why did we stop the
I
process?
think Elaine wants to clarify, Mr. Supervisor. I think she wants to answer that.
I know. I was just explaining what answering your comment there about rushing it through. I'm not trying to do that at all. Yeah, Elaine.
and so the only thing I know Karen made the point. I think she mentioned the process, and I think she might have been mentioning, and correct me if I'm wrong, if she was mentioning the 3GI project that we did an informational meeting with last year, I believe. Is that the project you were talking about?
Yeah, the one in DeWitt. Yeah.
So, so I want to be clear. They came to us in, I believe, January, and that informational meeting was months later. That's all I'm asking for. Give us like, I think I'm still interested in that informational meeting, but I just thought they came to us in March, and then suddenly there was an informational meeting scheduled really fast, and I'd like more time to make sure we could be prepared for that information, that meeting. And then at the same time, I don't want to look at this in a box, right? We are actively starting the comprehensive land use plan process. And this discussion and this zone needs to be in that area, in those discussions, in those surveys, whatever that process does look like. So I just want to make sure we're looking at it in a comprehensive way. And I'm just asking, if we do an informational meeting, I'd like time to prepare for that.
Yeah, all right. I'm fine with that. I just a little blindsided.
Well, no, Ed, can I speak to that for a second? I mean, people should understand the process too. There's a Democratic caucus that can happen, right? So that means all the Democratic members of the board can talk to each other without violating town meeting law. And likewise, Ed and Karen can also conference.
That's in
so I think
process, right? It's with a Democrat committee to have a caucus.
Sorry?
Isn't there representatives, Tim, that need to be there from that are committee for a caucus? I thought that.
No, we can just caucus. No, the law is such that we can just, as members of the same party together, can converse about sort of projects and not be in violation of meeting law.
I thought you had to set meeting dates for that so people would know. No, you don't.
No. So the open meetings law has several exemptions from the open meetings law. One of them is a political caucus. It's actually an exception to the open meetings law, like attorney-client privilege would be.
And so what I'm saying is, I think it's very fair to sort of say, all right, so a good practical thing is to give you a heads up before the meeting to say, we did have a chat, you know what, Elaine really asked us to think twice about the speed of the informational meeting for these reasons. We all considered that and really agreed with her. And she said, I'm going to put a statement forward so that I'm really clear about why. So that to give you a sense of that, there's no reason not to give, I think it was literally, there was no politicking about blindsiding anyone. So I want to be clear about that, because this is an issue that everyone is wondering, how does this all work? How do people actually talk about things? What's clear and what's not? So I think it's good to talk about it.
And I always reach out to one or two of you before the meeting to
You do.
get updates, and I guess
You do.
this one was missed, I believe.
You do. No, but likewise, Ed, you will caucus with folks, on your side and in other ways too, and we understand that too. It's
not too hard for Karen and I to get together without being an open meeting law. Okay, so.
And again, we had Kinsella come and present, but there was we had a full schedule, and the board didn't really get to discuss. So I that's why I wanted to have that time tonight. So thank you.
Okay, good.
And the applicant be heard from?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's hear Adam or Tom.
Let me see if can you hear me?
Yes, very loud.
I'm a little new at this. I certainly understand what you guys are saying, and I certainly expected to have to educate you. This isn't an industry that's well known or understood. And, obviously you guys are new on the board and haven't been through this, where we've been through this many different times, and nothing that I've heard and nothing that's been written wasn't expected, and, that we've got a lot of data on. So, we were expecting this, we knew this, and I understand that it is a long-term decision and stuff. And despite, Caitlin's view of, scarring the land forever and things like that, there's a reason, I believe, Tim, this is what they call an overlay district. They created this district back in 1979 when Allied Chemical came into the town of Manlius, because regardless, it's a temporary use of the land. And that's why the town created it that way, so that it reverts back to the previous zoning when mining is done and complete and reclamation takes place. And New York State's been very good. I know some of you guys, one of the questions is certainly referring to, I'm sure, the old mine on Burdick Street, because it was abandoned pre-DEC, pre-reclamation planning, pre-reclamation bonding, that you have to put up money to make sure that you don't leave an abandoned site that's unusable. So a lot's changed over that time, and that's where I think your educational comes in here, the education on mining and what's done, and it is a temporary use of the land after you've gotten the natural resources off of this. And like I said, and I understand people's concerns. We've heard these before, we've done these, and the good thing is we do have data on this, and it is going to take time. And I think, in discussing this a little bit, I do understand it is part of the comprehensive planning. I've been through, I've lived in this town my entire life. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, heard it, understand. I think it's a good idea. There is one in place, but I also think we can move this process forward in conjunction with a comprehensive planning, so that we're not sitting here just stalled and not making any progress towards this. And I think, we didn't expect this to be a 2-meeting thing and get our zone change approval. I'm not that naive. But I also, like I said, I know it takes a lot of time and effort on your part, the board, to educate themselves. I hope they take the time and have an open mind and understand it. And as I said in the original presentation, a lot of people, I don't use crushed stone or whatever, but everybody's, a passive consumer of it. The project here, Longmont Road, we're down there putting stone in for the sidewalks, for clean water, the water district, I just listened to all the water district there, that'll use it, for people, it's needed. And then the next part of it is, you guys, You know, the emissions thing, where is it? Diesel emissions. So now we've got natural resources right here in the town of Manlius that can be utilized without bringing them in from further distances. The demand for the material is not going to change. As a matter of fact, it's increasing because we're looking for cleaner water. We want to control erosion. We want to, Wellwood School, when they built that parking lot, they built a huge dry well underneath the parking lot for the water to infiltrate back into the ground. It used more crushed stone than any other day it would have been, or any other time would have been just a parking lot, so it's used for that. So now the emissions thing, so you're going to force it to come in. Diesel emissions was the highest emissions of that presentation by the kids, so now you're going to, from a planning standpoint, you're going to force it to come in further on more trucks, more emissions, more wear and tear on the roads. It's a compounding effect, but that's all part of the the education of this. But in summary, I kind of got off track here a little bit, I'm sorry, but I get emotional about this. But I do understand what you're saying, and I know it is a long-term impact, but we would like it to continue to move through the process as we educate it and as the comprehensive plan comes together. I guess it's.
Thank you, Tom. That was a lot, and that was good.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I'll just add in Adam Schultz from Couch White, representing Mr. Kinsella. My job is to take care of the legal side of things, so forgive me for that, because it's not as exciting as listening to Tom. But I hear the discussion. I certainly appreciate it. I would, Caitlin, I would remind you that Kinsella is also a member of the community. He is a taxpayer in your community, and he is entitled to have a voice in the community.
Yes,
So
thank you. I do remember that, and I don't need to be reminded of that.
Well,
My only point was that I have a lot of community members who I'd like to hear from, including Mr. Kinsella, but that I want to do that as a part of the comprehensive planning process so that I have the opportunity to hear from everyone, including his company. Please don't put words in my mouth. Thank you.
I didn't put any words in your mouth. In any event, we are more than happy to participate in the comprehensive planning process. It's a necessary process for a community that's trying to make good plans going forward. That said, as the supervisor pointed out near the beginning of this discussion, we do have certain due process rights. We made an application to the town under a set of rules and regulations that the town has on its books. And we are entitled to have that application move forward under that process. Now, like I said, we understand that this may have pushed the idea of addressing a comprehensive plan, that a project like this could push that discussion to the forefront, if you will. That's perfectly understandable. But given that that's what the town wants to do, but at the same time that you already have an application pending, and so that this process is not done at the expense of Kinsella, our suggestion would be to parallel track it. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean locking yourselves into a position or having to make any particular decision. But you can look at the application. We can address the questions that the town and the residents have, and it can run in tandem with the comprehensive planning process. And that way, everything is getting done at the same.
Mr. Schultz, I believe that was actually what Elaine suggested. So I don't think we really conflicted about that.
Okay, if that maybe I just didn't understand that was the suggestion. So that would be great.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah, for clarifying. That's exactly what I was reiterating as well. Thank you.
So if I can, so again, I just want to be clear. I wanted to make sure we updated the residents. We're getting a lot of concerns and letters, and I just thought we needed to make sure that they knew, give them an update, especially with like kind of this informational meeting floating around. So I wanted to make sure that we take the time to plan that meeting accordingly, which means it's going to take time And I think too, if we do plan this meeting, this informational meeting, we need to make sure that we're not announcing it 2 weeks ahead. It needs to be a little bit more thought out than that. So I just want to make sure that that those thoughts were expressed, and that again, we're looking at this in a comprehensive way, and that the residents know, you know, that if there is no informational meeting next month, that's okay. We're taking our time. We have asked Casella a lot of questions. We'll be looking for those responses. We'll be posting. I believe we've said we'll post those questions on our website. And then once we hear from Kinsella on those questions, let's again talk about this before we jump to an information meeting until we feel we have everything until we feel we have everything we need to move forward into that next area of, okay, let's have an informational meeting with a panel and have that discussion. And then I think after that, we can really feel like where we are. Does that
and I think that, you know, you and I know Sarah, you were sort of putting this whole thing together anyway. I think Heather might have been involved, and you know, I would just say continue the process, but let's do it based on the time frame that we can work with, that you have that works. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to rush anything. You know,
no.
Let's do it. Let's do it the right way, and let's get everyone involved with it. And I'm fine with it. You know, so. I'll sort of leave that up to you, you know, because you're very, very good at putting those organizational meetings together and communicating with us. Sarah has seen all the emails that I get from her. She did see the list. There are a lot. So we'll just keep those going. You know, let's go forward with that.
Great. So again, residents, we're going to be starting the comprehensive land use plan, or the comprehensive land use plan. There's a public meeting next month. Yeah. We'll be starting that process, kicking off next month. Get involved, find it on our website, and then we will be keeping you informed when we hear.
Yeah, and that's good, because I know a couple of Q&As that they thought we were going to vote on something tonight.
Yeah, and it's the process too. I mean, to again have Tim explain the process so that way residents understand the whole process. And again, this can't happen without a complete environmental review. Right. So, but we're not even, we're just getting all the information so that way everyone has the information and learns with us as we work on the comprehensive land use plan, and go through this.
I don't think I have an official committee report for comprehensive plan in there. Sarah, do you think we have one? I can quickly just plug the event date and also steering committee.
I think that was really, we were just going to plug the Tuesday date.
So on this coming Tuesday, the 4th, we will have, and we'll start blasting on social, but we'll have some flyers up in local places, but it's important for you to help us get the word out. Tuesday, May 4th at 6:30, we'll have our first public workshop. It will be virtual via Zoom. And you're going to be introduced to our partners from Barton and LeJudas, Molly and John. We are going to open up the Google form that will allow you to apply for the steering committee. The steering committee will be a group of stakeholders who will be committing to stick with the process from start to finish and meet every month and help lead initiatives within the planning process. So if you are a stakeholder in the community and the town is one of your top 3 areas you'd like to give volunteer service to over the next couple of years, you have perspective, you have some expertise, please consider applying for that and join us no matter what. And the recording will be available and we're getting this ball rolling.
And Heather, I did see a remark, does the comprehensive plan include the impact to environment, health issues, and quality of life? And I think we can confidently say, yes, that's exactly what we're trying to address through the comprehensive planning effort.
Yeah, we have a baseline too, where we understand that we have a lot to accomplish to reach certification levels for Climate Smart Communities Initiative, and to receive opportunities for grants. So as a baseline, there are some compliance things that we need to make sure in the plan, but you can go beyond compliance for sure.
Yeah. And again, just to rest assured the residents, and I've seen some of the comments, and I know most of them were making the comments, except for Anonymous. I don't know who that was, but I want to let them know I'm not in cahoots with Tom Kinsella, just so whoever that was, but we are, again, it's a process that we go through. And that's all we're trying to accomplish here. It's the right of the property owner to go through a process. So, and so with that, I guess we can move on. Tom, you want to say something? You're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I guess, the process and stuff and, the questions and I don't, sir, this is a question I think for Tim, as far as the secret, what these questions, obviously we all know this is expensive and in replicating the questions, what might be answered through secret, through different public hearings, I don't want to just keep duplicating this process. I don't know what the process is, when it starts, as opposed to, because there's going to be a lot of questions along the line, and when is it going to be, informed? When are we going to have all the questions together? I guess what's the process here? I feel like right now we're kind of sitting there and just going to ask some questions, and I don't know what the procedure is. I guess is my question to you.
Yeah. So the procedure, as I understand it, what I think the board is looking for is some just base information, fundamental base information from the questions that they have raised. I think they're interested in holding a hearing or some kind of informational meeting from the public to get more questions that they may not be thinking about. That will put them in a position, and that will put them in a position to then begin the actual process of considering the application, considering it from a seeker standpoint. So I don't think we're in the seeker process right now. I think we are pre-seeker. I'm interested in some of the comments that Mr. Schultz made as it relates to protecting his client's rights for a zone change and some type of vested rights.
Tim,
rights he might have in that.
we're not.
Nobody in the town has a right to a zone change. That is a change in the law. And because it's a change in the law, the processes for a zone change are different than processes for other land use type things. So I mean, if the town board decided tomorrow, this is not something we are going to consider and we are going to vote on it at the next meeting, and if there's no support for it, then it doesn't move. So I think we are pre-seeker right now because there are questions that are even coming up to determine whether or not the board wants to move forward with this. And a lot of time and energy shouldn't be spent on engineering studies and all those types of things until we get into the into the seeker process.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, some of the questions are certainly general. Some of them I think get a little more specific that may be answered in that secret process, and it's tough to, sort out which ones. I certainly understand the general questions. I certainly understand what you're, trying to gather more information before that decision's made on who's gonna, the secret process. But it's a fine line there on some of the questions, I guess. That's why I was asking about the procedure.
I think at this point, they are general questions and concerns. They are not technical questions and concerns that would be more appropriate for a seeker process.
Fair enough.
Adam, please feel free to jump in if you disagree or if you have a different opinion than I do.
No, I don't think there's anything to be said at the moment. I think that there are timeframes in seeker that should be complied with. At the same time, the questions that we've been provided, you can pretty well divide them into general questions, as you're discussing. I think, in fairness, there are a number of those questions that are what we would consider seeker type questions. And my only concern from that perspective would be, as you know, Tim, there is the seeker record. And so, and that's kind of where I think Tom was going, is we have to make sure that, so the seeker record for everybody needs to be protected. And so if you ask a question today and start the seeker process next week, but then don't ask that question again, then that question hasn't been asked and answered within that legal framework known as the seeker process. And that could present a problem going down the road. So it's not, we're more than happy to answer any question that anybody has, because we've done this many times. We're familiar with it, and we understand that people want information, and we're happy to provide it. But we want to make sure that we're doing that within the context of the proper procedure, or said another way, not to have to go back and do it a second time. So that's all.
Okay. All right. So I think,
Perfect.
very good. All right. Are we good? Anyone else? Or are we good to go here? I think we've cleared the air here, what we're going to try to accomplish. And it's going to take some time. That's the important thing, but we're going to go through all the understanding considerations of what we need to do to get to some end result, which we have no idea what that's going to be. So
at this point in time, then we're going to answer the questions, possibly assemble that group discussion group, move forward informally on information education. I think I got some tours coming up, and then move from there. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I would just, get, you have those questions, I think, Elaine, those were sent. And I would just say, just keep the line of communication open with us so that we can, stay in front of it.
The way I saw those questions, they were not technical type questions, most of them. They were more general questions. So I don't think you're going to have to spend a lot of time and energy on those questions.
Right.
And much of it were comments too, and you can respond to the comments that were raised by Barbara Vett, for instance, in her.
Yeah, I know some were as simple as making some changes in the thing, which they caught and stuff. I know, some were pretty simple. Some you could get as deep as you wanted or as general as you want, I guess, too.
I don't think we want to start a seeker clock, so to speak, based on what Mr. Schultz was talking about. I want to be clear that I don't want to be having any of the questions categorized in a way where they're starting that formal process.
All right, we'll get going on that stuff and take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Everybody.
So much for just reading that statement, huh? I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. I would have been. Anyway, let's move on. All right, let's go on to item 11.
We need to start doing jumping jacks in between acts or something, because we're all gonna, for health and wellness purposes, we're gonna.
So, Rob, I think you're up, sir. Hanging in there with us tonight, huh?
Oh, I've got a couple of things actually tonight. First of all, I did get a couple of calls on Hale Road requesting that we checked on their request for a speed limit change.
Yeah, we can think about that. Sure, it's right there.
Yeah, I was able to actually, through Allison and myself, I've had conversations with Betsy Parmalee. We did receive a letter from her with a recommendation. It's not an official letter yet at this point. Basically what they were saying is that they're going to try and reduce it from 55, which is unmarked right now, to 45.
Right.
After my conversation with a couple of the homeowners, obviously there's only 6 or 8 homeowners on Hale Road. They're not going to be happy with the 45. So I did have this conversation with Heather. I think she knows some of the residents up there and had conversations with them. So we kind of.
I haven't spoken with them since we talked.
Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to make mention that the request has basically been made to me at this point to appeal the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit at this point. And instead of me just putting signs up and down, we'll leave it alone as where it is right now. And then we'll request through Allison and myself, we'll put another request in for an appeal to the 45-mile-an-hour. And then we will go from there. And they will actually probably have to come out and do a radar, do another traffic study of some sort. So at this point, I think that would be my recommendation. As long as the board is good with that, we'll try and follow another T9 and we'll
So-
do an appeal to the 45.
So Rob, to be clear, the residents didn't want it to stay at 55, right? They wanted it
Correct,
at 45. Okay. That's
correct, because it was unmarked, it was
Right.
unposted.
clarification. They want it lower than the 45.
Yeah, I think there's some confusion that I want to clear up too, because apparently a couple of residents have got a GPS on their vehicles, whatever, and when they drive the road, the GPS actually says 35 is what the speed limit is on that road.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, that happens in a lot of areas. It's just what GPS would have it as. They may not have it accurate. So they're not all guaranteed to be accurate. So unfortunately.
Put it in the appeal.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
there you
So-
go.
So Rob, may I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
We did that at Bowman Road and they came back and said it had to go back to 45, that they wouldn't agree to the 35. And it seems like Bowman Road has a lot more traffic on it than Hale Road does.
Yeah, that's correct, Sarah. I think, and I've explained that to a couple of residents. I highly doubt that they will lower it less than the 45 mile an hour. Typically what you see is usually a 10 mile an hour drop than what the original is, unless it's a school zone, obviously.
Yeah.
I had that conversation with a couple of them, but I think at this point, just to appease the residents, I think we just go ahead and do the appeal and go from there at this point.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. That's fine.
So Tim, I don't think we need a motion on that. I think it's just a matter of filing an appeal on behalf of just putting another TE9 in.
But yeah, I believe, right?
Thank you for your service on that and help.
Yeah.
Yep. And just keep it in mind, my conversation with Betsy, she's talking 12 to 18 months right now. That's what they're out with speed zone changes at this point, so.
And that's about par for the course, actually.
Yeah, from my conversation with her, obviously, I don't know if it has anything to do with COVID or not, but the chief could probably attest to it too, that there is a lot of people that are speeding. And I don't know why, if there's more people on the road or whatever, but I think that they're having a lot of people in subdivisions that are asking for zone or for speed changes. So again, we'll just follow through. I'll get with Allison and we'll do an appeal to that 45 mile.
Anything
Rob,
else? Karen.
Rob, yeah, I did speak to Rob earlier in the week, also about a request over on Troop K. And anyway, I'm not gonna bring it up tonight, but we'll have more discussion on that. And
yeah, we looked into that.
There is another request.
I think Allison and I actually called on that here the other day. We have not gotten any response back from that change yet, from that speed change. I think you passed that on along, didn't you, Allison, as an email too? So we've been in contact with her to let her know that we haven't gotten anything official back from that zone or from that speed zone change.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
Two other quick things here. The highway department is actually going through with our process with the road striping program. So typically every year I bring to the town board, we're trying to purchase our road paint this year from Sherwood and Williams. They do have the state contract. We have used them before in the past. And we looked into the glass spheres that is actually on state contract through Potters. We've bought in both before from both companies. It is within our budget. It's actually a little bit less. They're coming in price wise, a little bit less than what our budget was proposed for this year. So at this point, we need to look at the purchase of paint. We're gonna do 24 barrels of white, 24 barrels of white, 22 of yellow. And that'll be through Sherwood Williams at a price of $25,330.80. So I'll need a motion to approve that purchase.
Okay.
Move to approve the purchase of paint from Sherman-Williams for $25,330.
Okay.
And then
I
the
second it.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Rob.
And then the second one will be just through Potters, the glass spheres. Sorry, you did ask me, and I did find out, by the way, just to make mention to it, make a note. The glass spheres are actually made from crushed glass. So they are from recycled crushed glass. So we are using the recycled portion of that. And that'll be for $4,140. And then again, that'll be for 9 totes.
And these are all budgeted items anyway, Rod.
Yep, these are all budgeted items, but I figure, you know, at the price of what they are, we want to make sure that we've always gone through this process.
No,
So I guess we'll need a motion for that also.
Sure. Anyone?
Okay, I'd make a motion to authorize purchase from Potters, $4,140 for glass spheres.
Happy to second
Second.
that. Oh, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And I promise, Ed, this is the last quick thing that I have. Davis Ulmer does our fire protection with the highway garage for our sprinkler system. They come in and test it on a quarterly basis. The actual total price will be for $920. And they'll be doing the bill invoicing that quarterly to us. Before it was twice a year, now they're doing it quarterly to keep up with the code. So I guess I'll just need a motion to allow me to go into contract with Davis Ulmer for 2 years at that $920.
Is that more than what it was?
It's a tad bit more than what it was before, but we have it in our budget. So
all right.
it's been budgeted for it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rob. All right, now planning development, we have a 12 and a 12-1, I believe here, but Randy, you have anything for us? And then we'll move on to Elaine on the R2 zoning classifications and chickens. So you're up first, Randy.
A few things. Obviously, the plan reviews and the inspections are increasing quickly based on the time of year. We're sending more than normal cases, or I should say, files to zoning board for variances for pools, sheds, garages. Regardless of what it is, we're starting to see a bigger increase to the zoning board, which is going to put a little bit more burden on Debbie and Lisa coordinating that on it. The dentist office on Burdick Street, we ran into a few snags, some of the issues with the foundation and stuff. They were rectified quickly, and they are more than on track with the project finishing. So they're doing very well over there.
Excellent.
The water issue up at Military Academy up there off of 92. We are still working with the complex with the water. I'd mentioned a couple of months ago that we were working with them. They don't have adequate water supply up throughout the complex. So we're working with a company and we're working with the owners to see if we can get that rectified. We've identified several fire code violations up there that we are addressing. I got Dave and Mike are up there taking care of that. They were just up there today, and they're working with the owners, slow but sure, to get everything rectified on the site.
Okay.
So I'll keep you updated on that.
Thank you very much. All right, Elaine, we'll move on to your update with the R2 zone.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I just want to take a second to make sure Homewood residents know that we've looked at the R2 zone code, and there is nothing that prohibits chicken in the code already, and the code already allows structures. So this is why it wasn't addressed in those first changes. The language that prohibited chickens was only in the R1 zoning code, which we changed. I also wanted to note that the R2 zoning we have in the town is only the Homewood district. It includes like 5 streets. And it's the neighborhood behind Target Fayette Manor is zoned R1. So that would have been included in the first changes. So I just want to make sure that was on the record. And that was it at this time.
I said, as long as we don't have to vote on anything again.
No, nothing. I just want to make sure that was cleared up a little bit. That's all.
Thank you, Elaine, for that. I'm glad you clarified that. That was very, very good of you. And I know you do your research, Elaine. So, all right. And Attorney Fortesky, what do you have? The notice of permissive referendum on the lease of solar farm on landfill.
Yes, I have prepared a resolution. As you all recall, last fall, the town entered into a lease with Abundant Energy to lease space on the landfill.
Right.
The lease was finally fully executed in January of this year. A lease under general municipal law requires a notice in the paper, which was not done. It was my fault. It should have been done. So this is just doing that now.
Okay.
And that would be subject to a permissive referendum, which means within 30 days, if somebody collected enough signatures, that the issue would go before the voters. It would be a rare occurrence if that ever happened. I did speak with the Abundant Energy yesterday or the day before, and they still don't have their interconnect agreement yet, so that has not been approved. There are still some issues with the landfill, or I'm sorry, with the wetlands that have not been delineated, and they don't expect to hear back from that for another month or so. So we're still in the very early stages, early processes of the landfill and leasing the landfill. But this is a process, and this is a procedure. This is something that needs to be done. So if the board has any questions, let me know. If not, we can pass that resolution as been presented.
Okay.
I'll just make one point of clarification, Tim. There are no issues with the wetland at this time. That's not one of the issues that are of concern. We are waiting to hear back from the DEC, and we do expect to have an update in May. But there's no wetland delineation that we'll need to do.
Well, what is the DEC issue we're waiting for?
There's this whole process that they go through in reviewing all community solar projects or CDG or DG projects. So we're just in the middle of that, and we're just waiting to hear back because they'll evaluate the landfill. This is just a part of normal process, but we do expect an update really, really soon, which will be hopefully good news.
Tim?
They're reviewing a permit.
Yes, Karen.
So when's it going in the paper?
It's within 10 days.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Okay. So we do need a motion on this tonight, though, you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to, what is it, Tim, to just
To file the notice of lease.
to file the notice of lease.
Of the lease.
To file the
second.
notice.
And
Thank you, Elaine.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. Anything else, Tim?
The other issue, speaking of solar energy, is that issue that came up during the public comment about pilots and the request for us to support a 25-year pilot that the IDA would issue for the Kirkville Road solar project. So I'm fine with sending a support letter to it. The question is, do we want to say 15 years, 25? Are we comfortable with 25 years, I guess is the
I had a question on that.
Yeah.
I think we did one of these last December. Does it matter, like, does the amount change usually on those kinds of things?
The pilot?
Yeah.
I think that was different. Wasn't that the lease?
Oh, it's different.
Yeah, that was the lease agreement. This is the, explain it, Tim, this is where they actually, it's the tax, it's in lieu of taxes, pilot.
Right.
No, it was a pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may have, did we approve a pilot and
they
was it
did.
There was a
The
pilot.
North Eagle Village Road, I believe we did.
Yeah.
Was it a 25-year pilot or a 15-year?
No, it was 15.
Yeah.
Whatever it was for that one, I would say we should probably be consistent then, right? Is that what you're thinking, Elaine?
It was 15, but I didn't know how it worked with the amount because the amount was different, it seemed like. So I didn't know how that all worked. Is that not what we do?
This is the IDA doing this pilot, not the town of Manlius.
So they do that part.
They're going to determine what the pilot payments are going to be with our input, but they're asking for support letter for the IDA's pilot, and that's what the issue is before us.
Mr. Vollmer is still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the past, our history has been most, pilots I've seen, and Ann, you can help me with this, confirm, I think it's 15 years I've seen pretty consistent? Or are they more or less, like, all I've seen is 15?
Did reach out for clarification on this from my colleague Chris Carrick, who works at the planning board, and he had, in our discussion, he had mentioned that 25 years is typical because with the development of these projects, sometimes 15 years just isn't enough to as a developer, as a company, to make enough money for the project to be viable.
I didn't realize that was part of the way they figured it.
I am happy to support a letter. I would like to I just want to look at the one that we approved already and have Caitlin that information that you're giving us. If there's any data or any other guidance or anything that Chris can give us that we can just look at and read too. I just want us to come from a place where we understand the benefits on both sides, I guess.
Well, the benefit to them is they pay less for a longer period of time.
Yeah, understood. But I mean, right. But I mean, if it's for us, I mean, we are already being, I guess I don't want to be out of sync in the industry and being seen as somehow more restrictive than other places, right? We want to be seen as a place where people want to come and do business in renewable energy, I think. But at the same time, different properties are also need to be considered in different ways based on what's around them and all the rest of it. So I just
I think we can wait. I think it's fine to wait. We can maybe ask Chris to weigh in with some more details and specifics. This was kind of put in front of us relatively last minute. So I am not an expert in a large scale solar development. I'm more like on the energy side, how it benefits the community. I'm not a solar developer, so I can't really speak to this as well as I can other issues in renewable energy. But Chris is who helped us with our project with Abundant and our landfill project, and this is what he does all day. So I'm sure I'm volunteering him to join us in our meeting, but hopefully he's okay with that.
But the ask is just like a letter in support, though. It's not like
That's
we're
all
not
they're
approving.
asking. They're asking for a letter of support for the pilot.
Can we be vague about the time period and just say 15 to 25 years?
Well, they have.
It is. I guess it was up to them.
I'm comfortable with 15. 25 seems a little far out, but
I know you thought maybe even a shorter period of time. I think you had mentioned in one of your, but we can't go shorter than, what was it? You were looking at 7 or 8 years, I think, and that's not viable, Tim?
No, it's got to be.
So 15 is a compromise.
Right.
All right, so
I think Heather's got a point. Let's look at the other ones that we've done.
Yeah.
And for the solar, I mean, how many have we done besides Taft Road?
That was only one, I think, and I can't find it now.
We discussed the pilot with Abundant and with our landfill solar
right.
project.
Well, so
That's different.
and there were questions that were raised about the issue with the landfill and the lease on the landfill, which I'll be happy to answer. Don't have to do it tonight, but based on the question that actually Allison raised earlier. But in the end, it was the regional planning, Central New York Regional Planning Board, who is the entity that went out and assisted us with identifying somebody to lease our landfill, and that's who we relied on. They were part of if my memory serves me right, and that has to do with the pilot too. We have not entered into a pilot yet for the landfill.
Yeah, I just remembered that we discussed it at that time.
Yeah, we did discuss it, but we don't know what those numbers are going to be yet.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So we're going to look into it.
Let's just hold off.
We're going to come up with a decision next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Fulmer still waiting to talk? I don't know.
Yes, he is.
Thank you for your patience.
You want to let Mr. Fulmer in, Allison? See what his thoughts are?
Yes, I can do that now.
Hey, everyone.
We are so sorry, Ben.
No, that's not a problem. I know you've considered a lot tonight, so I appreciate you giving this some thought as well. So as a point of reference, I believe that the Taft Solar project received a 20-year pilot from the Onondaga County IDA. And the terms that we're asking for mirror those of the Taft Solar Project. So someone was wondering, how does this compare to past projects? So it would be the same as on the Taft project. As to where it stands, industry standard, NYSERDA has provided suggested dollar amounts on a per megawatt AC basis. This falls squarely in the middle of those. So I would call it very standard amount here.
To use 20, you're saying then, Ben?
Yes, sir.
I was almost going to say compromise between the 15 and the 25, but
Well, did we send this letter for Taft Road?
I don't think they asked for it for Taft Road.
So where this comes from on my end is I spoke with Nancy Lowry at the Onondaga County IDA a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And she advised that I first bring our proposal before the town of Manlius, as well as the East Syracuse Minoa School District. And I've been discussing with the school district, and those talks are ongoing. And this is the first chance I've had to interface with you all.
And you know, Ben, Allison and I have been in touch with Nancy. We've been trying to meet with her now, well, a couple of months, and then somebody went on vacation. And when I came back, I said, when I come back, we'll meet with her, which would have, you know, sooner than later. So that's still a meeting we're working on, right, Allison? Yep. So we need to clear this up with Nancy, Ben, a little bit.
Okay.
See if we're gonna go that route.
Okay. Is
So
that
we'll consider this again next time?
Yeah, yeah. Can we do that?
Yeah, when's the next meeting out of curiosity?
That'll be the 12th, May 12th.
May 12th.
And thank you for sharing your information so we can look at the Taft Road project for comparison.
Right.
Thank you so much for hanging in there for 4 hours.
I forgot about Ben. He was there right from the beginning.
No, it's always interesting. We did send a letter, but I think it was just yesterday, so I doubt you've all had the chance to review it.
All right.
I can circulate that more widely. Please just let me know who I should send it to for distribution to all the counselors.
You can send it to Allison Weber, our town
Okay.
clerk.
Yeah. And if I got it, I would.
Our esteemed town clerk.
Okay. All right. Are we good on? All right. Very good. Thank you, Ben. Let's see here. Oh, town clerk, fireworks. Boy, we must be getting close to a non-COVID summer coming up here.
I almost just said I have nothing. And then I remembered.
You can't get away from it.
We received an application for fireworks for Saturday, May 22nd. All of paperwork has been filled out, has been reviewed by the Office of Planning and Development, and they recommend approval. So I would like a motion to authorize me to issue a fireworks permit for Saturday, May 22nd to, we could just say Traditions at the Links. The applicant is actually Mary Elaine Dennis on behalf of Traditions at the Links. So you could just say Traditions.
Yeah, Allison, I'd like to make the motion. That'll be great to have fireworks in the community for the Traditions at the Links on May 22nd. Did they say what time?
Yeah, usually we put a limit that they're not supposed to go after 10.
Yep, 9:15 they said.
9:15, yeah, good.
Oh, okay, good. And John, did you second it? Did I say? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Yeah, and they had all the documents, Allison. That was very informative that they got that information to us. Thank you. Anything else, Allison? No. All right. Chief, you are up now. Thank you for also hanging in there.
Yes, sir. One item, Mr. Supervisor. It's been a long-term goal of mine to civilianize our property room. Right now, police officers are performing that function, and I'd like to civilianize that. So tonight, I'd be looking for a motion from the town board to allow the town supervisor to sign into a contract with a civilian employee to be able to perform the property room function.
And that was, and we talked about that. That's basically as far as budgetary process, it's actually replacing a vacant position.
Yes, sir. The monies that would be paid to this contracted position would come out of the existing budget line item for a vacant position for CSO, community service officer. And actually, there would be a savings recognized for the town because under a contracted position, there'd be no benefits and no health insurance, no retirement, all those things that normally would be contributed towards a position like that.
And we're looking at 20 hours, I think, or something of that.
Yes, yes. Currently, the individual that's interested in the assignment, and we still have to do a background investigation, he really only can commit to 20 hours a week.
All right, very good. Go ahead.
Mr. Supervisor,
Go ahead, Carrie.
I'd gladly make the motion. What,
Let's
Tim?
just let's identify the person. So do we have a person? We could identify that person.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I'd like-
the individual, his name is Robert Winter. He's a retired sergeant from the town of Manlius Police Department.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Either him or an entity that he forms to allow that to contract with the town.
Right.
Yeah, so I would make that motion, Mr. Supervisor, for you to enter in to the contract to hire Mr. Winter at 20 hours a week.
And at what hourly rate?
The rate agreed upon it was $30 an hour.
$30 an hour. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Good. And Elaine?
For the property room function.
Elaine seconded. I know you seconded a couple of times there. Yeah, Rob Winter. I know Rob. He did a great job when he was with the police department. He also helped us with our CPR class. You know, he ran that.
Well, and the CRC as well. He headed that up for a long time.
I saw Ann.
Yeah, just a quick budget item, very boring.
Wait, we didn't finish.
Let's vote on this first, Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, very good. Now you're good, Ann.
Just housekeeping. We'll just want to make sure that we do a budget transfer from your .1 account to your .4 for that amount.
Right, okay.
At another time.
Okay, no problem.
That's a good point. Anything else, Chief?
No, thank you.
All right, Ann, you're up next.
Okay, a few things. I forwarded to board members earlier today. We have 2 drainage projects that were put out to bid, have been reviewed by Miller Engineers and the Highway Superintendent. Drainage District 1, we have a project, Innsbrook Road. This is the next phase of a project that was last completed in 2018. We would like to award the bid to Joseph J. Lane Construction for the base bid plus the alternate 1, which is in the amount of $208,888.
Okay, we need a motion for that.
So moved.
I'm happy to second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The second project is in Drainage District number 3. It's for the Saber Lane Detention Basin. We would like to award that bid to Joseph J. Lane Construction again in the amount of $47,888.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And then just 2 quick items. The annual report was filed by the CPA this week. I will forward that to all the board members and I will send it to the clerk's office so that can be posted on the website.
Yep.
And the other is we have finally submitted a reimbursement to FEMA for all of our COVID expenses. So we're hopeful that we will be seeing about $20,000 in reimbursement for the items that we purchased. So
what was that? Ann?
about $20,000 of reimbursement from FEMA for our COVID supplies and PPE, etc. So I will keep you posted on that. And that is it.
Hopefully we will qualify for that reimbursement. So thank you. You good? All right, thank you, Ann. All right, we have some committee reports, which we're going to zoom through quickly. Well, I'm just kidding. Karen, go ahead. You're up first.
Yeah, very quickly. And I just wanted to report that the deer management program again this year was very, very successful. We had visits during January, February, and March. A total of 88 white-tailed deer were removed, most of which were in the town of Manlius. Our sites were very well positioned, and I want to thank the residents for helping us identify these problem sites. But this allowed 2,613 pounds of venison to be processed, which provided 7,839 meals to the community. So we'll be meeting again with Fayetteville and to see the program going forward. So very successful. I want to thank the DEC and the USDA. They're great to work with.
So the 88, Karen, just for clarification, that's all of between the town and the villages, village of.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. That's it. And it seems to be working. You know, it's controlling. That's all we're looking at is controlling. You know, so.
And right, the traffic accidents last year, they were down 30%, but as you know, the chief has mentioned, some of that may be due to COVID, but there was a 30% reduction in deer traffic related accidents.
And we have a beautiful season of tulips because the deer did not eat them.
Right. Good point. Look right outside our front lawn here in the town hall. Looks beautiful.
I know. I'm very sentimental though about one particular deer that has made it through multiple seasons after having some sort of accident or situation and can't use a leg. So I just want to make sure. And I've noticed some of our tulips have been eaten. So I know it's hard. It's very hard. But yeah, we need to keep people safe on the roads, no doubt.
Okay, thank you, Heather. All right, let's, Caitlin, you're up for the Sustainable Manlius.
Sustainable Manlius continues Earth Fest tomorrow for our final presentation at 7:00 p.m. For heat CNY, geothermal and heat pumps. It's been an incredibly successful Earth Month, and I appreciate so much the efforts of the events committee and our committee chair Ryan Dunn to put all of this together. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Communications Committee, Councilor Deere, not to be confused with the Deer Management Committee. Sorry, it's getting late.
I didn't know I needed to look out so much for myself in the early months of the year. I got to be careful. I don't want to be one of those 88. So the Communications Committee, everything's going good. You know, we're still looking at the communications plan. We did put into place a communications calendar internally. And I think for trash and brush, we had some scheduled posts that went out perfectly scheduled, and it was fantastic and took a little pressure off of folks not have to log into Facebook on a Saturday and push a post out. So hopefully that'll continue to be really useful for internal management of our external communications. And we are getting into the website redesign wholesale this next month. And that'll be an ongoing process for a while. And eventually we will unveil a redesigned website that's hopefully easy to use and has lots of information. But we're going to continue working on that and looking for ways to ensure that we're communicating with folks. I actually talked to a resident, and they said they don't pay too much attention. I asked them if they knew about the quarry, and just kind of left it at that. They said no, and I said, well, thank you for the feedback. We're clearly not doing a good enough job getting that out there, but no, the communications committee's in a good spot, and we'll continue to work hard at better communicating with folks.
Very good. Thank you, John. That's good. It's all about communication. And we have Heather on the Tree Commission. A little update for us.
Sure. Just to be clear, this Friday is Arbor Day, and we will recognize it in two ways. One, Mr. Supervisor, I believe you will be attending the presentation of the tree planting in honor of Tony. What's Tony's last name? Forgive me. Did you say?
Yeah, that's what I was digging for, was this name, because I
Thank you. Our wonderful resident, a veteran who is an honor flight alum, who is 100 years young, and as part of his recent birthday celebration was gifted a tree, which will be planted in his honor on the Wellwood campus. So thank you to Sarah Gridley and the FM school district for coordinating that. And also, we are Tree City again, so we'll have that formal information about being a Tree City and our designation on Arbor Day. And we have an education project for the community that we're working on, and would love to speak with Peggy in Recreation to talk ahead about the future Arbor Day, maybe that fish stock collaboration we wanted to do a couple of years ago.
Oh,
yeah, before the pandemic, we wanted to do a seedling giveaway along with fish stock to engage youth in the community around forestry. And we're working hard, the committee is working hard on putting together, meshing with the Climate Smart Communities goals around putting together a forestry program, taking steps towards building a tree inventory. And I want to thank Rob and his team for always being available for consultation and support on that front.
And I think we're 17 years with the Tree City, I believe. In fact, Rob is good about getting those signs up when you enter the town. So, and just real quickly to clarify Tony's event here, it was 85 years ago at his high school in Tarrytown, New York, that they planted an oak tree, and they would donate them, and at that time. And what happened was, for him, Cross Creek Nursery donated an oak tree, and they asked if FM would plant this tree. So I want to thank Superintendent Tice and Sarah and the school board for allowing this to be done, because this is sort of an unusual request, and it's at 3:15 on Friday at Wellwood. So if any of you can make it, that would be great.
I'm singing the alma mater in my head right now, guarded by the old oak tree. So it's significant that it's an oak tree for sure.
Very good. So that was just a quick comment there. And all I have tonight left, which I know that's on this sheet here, is the supervisor's report for March. So you all had a chance to see that. So I need a motion to accept my report.
So I'll make a motion to accept the supervisor's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, and no executive session tonight. So we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. To our MJ colleagues, we were wondering if perhaps you have rethought your engagement with the town after this meeting.
This is my third meeting this week, and this is the shortest one so far.
No!
So I just want to say something nice about Randy. I believe this is his.
Wait a second.
Yep. This is his last meeting, right?
Well, and is officially, right? But maybe we could still.
The next meeting isn't until after his last day. So I just want to say, Randy, that we've all appreciated working with you. And we're sure you're really sad to be leaving these long evening meetings.
Thank you,
Randy, we may still need you at these meetings, so keep your cell phone on.
Well, I'll still be around.
We'll
I
need
don't
you
think
anyway.
Nights and weekends.
All the
I'll
best,
be-
Randy. All the
Thank you.
best.
And Joel and Tracy, I'll reach out and just say hello to you another time this week, just so we can talk a little bit, okay?
I'm
So-
actually gonna meet with Ron, I think on Friday. We were supposed to meet tomorrow, but we moved it to Friday morning. So I will be in town Friday morning early.
Oh,
So
all right, okay.
maybe I'll drop into your office.
I'll be here, all right.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to it.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Randy.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.